Hello.
Hi.
Hi, is this the Middleton Plan Commission?
Absolutely. Who is this?
This is Bob Owen. This must be Gurdeep I'm
Bob.
speaking to.
Yes, Bob, you're at the right place.
Okay,
Okay, well,
thank you.
it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Plan Commission for January 12th, 2021 to order. The first meeting of the year. Before we go to the roll call, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our new commissioner, Randy Bruce. Randy, raise your hand wherever you are, and Abby will put you on the screen.
If you just say hello, Randy, you'll be activated on the screen.
Very good. Am I activated now?
We can see you.
You are.
Perfect. Okay. Glad to be able to join the group.
Go ahead and say a few words about yourself, Randy. So,
Sure.
you know,
For those of you who do not know me, I've been a Middleton resident for nearly 30 years now. And have been practicing in the field of architecture in the city for about that same period of time. Recently retired from my practice, and hope to be able to contribute as I can to the city.
Thank you, Randy. Great way to start. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is the roll call. Abby.
Bruce.
Here.
Murray.
Here.
Paulson.
Here.
Ramsey.
Here.
Schaefer.
Here.
Slavish.
Here.
And Brar is present as well.
All right. This is going to be exciting meeting. So let's start with the very first item. At 7 o'clock, we are going to start the public hearing for the draft City of Middleton Comprehensive Plan 2021. So it's open for the public hearing, and I'm going to say that we have gotten some communications already. I'm going to go ahead and ask Abby to mention the communications which we have gotten.
Sure,
Abby, go
thank you, Mayor. Included in your packet was a letter from the town of Middleton and an email from Mark Opitz, an email from Terrence Wall, and some comments from the Friends of Pheasant Branch. So there were 4 separate items that were included in the packet.
Okay, so now the system would be that
오, 시리 저 아저씨가 나왔네? 메이요.
could you please, unless we ask you to mute yourself if you don't mind. So Abby, who is the person who wants to speak?
Okay, so there's a feature within Zoom where you can raise your hand if you wish to speak during the public hearing. And if you're not familiar with that feature, if you just click on the participants tab at the bottom of the page, and then on the bottom of the screen, it will pull up a bar and you can click on raise hand. And then I can let the mayor know whoever is waiting to speak during the hearings this evening. We have Jenny P. up first to speak.
Jenny, you're up. You have, please specify your name and your address, and you have 30 minutes, and Abby will keep track of the time.
Jenny Pavlovic, Town of Middleton. I'm speaking about the airport. I request that the city put the balance language regarding C-29 back into the city comprehensive plan transportation element. It was previously removed, and it's been discussed at other meetings that it needs to be put back in, but it hasn't been put back in. When describing the adverse impacts of the airport on its neighbors, I asked that you would change the word potential to current and potential to study and make sure current impacts are understood. I encourage the city of Middleton to look at the noise complaint data that neighbors are taking the time to share, including screenshots of flight paths over homes, and consider changing the flight pattern to a right turn when planes are taking off to the west to affect a less populated area. I request a third-party risk analysis of the risk to people and property on the ground for existing C-29 operations for people who live, work, and attend school within 5 miles of C-29. I ask you to hire an independent expert to do a credible noise study that addresses seasonal variation, and also to contract a complete environmental review, including air quality and effects on wildlife, by an independent expert, not someone who will get more or less work depending on what they report. Any lengthening of the runway to the west will affect multiple homes and schools and will destroy sandhill crane habitat. I asked you to include the Audubon Society in planning. When the solar array was built, critical bobolink nesting habitat was destroyed, and the Audubon Society wasn't notified until afterward by concerned citizens and wasn't included in that planning. The increase in very loud jet traffic to the west in 2020 has impacted the neighborhood. Extending the runway by even 200 feet would invite a significant incompatible increase in jet traffic year-round over the neighborhood. I've watched a jet struggle to take off to the west in high crosswinds, and it was horrifying to see it struggle to ascend over people's houses. It was really scary. This area is too populated for that type of unmonitored flight and certainly doesn't need an increase in that kind of jet traffic. I've also seen a jet take off to the west and turn early over homes, not following the recommended airport pattern to take off at 300 degrees. And airport manager Rich Morey confirmed that that jet didn't follow the pattern. A Middleton resident who claims to be a journalist has tried to intimidate neighbors and the chair of the town of Middleton against filing noise complaints. He does not live near the airport, has no idea what's going on in the vicinity of the airport, and has not looked at the complaints submitted, including screenshots of flight paths. He's not dealing in facts, and he's spreading information that could be dangerous to people who are reporting facts. So so-called serial complainers are dealing in facts and providing evidence and need to be listened to. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Jenny. So Abby, who is next?
Mayor,
up.
I didn't get her address. I didn't get the address for the record.
Jenny, could you please give your address for the record?
I think, Mr. Opitz, you know why I don't provide my address, because it invites overflights low over my house, and you know where I live, so.
Oh, the mayor had asked for addresses. That's all I was following up on. Sorry.
I'm just saying town of Middleton, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Abby, who is next?
Steve is next.
Steve? Okay.
Okay,
go
this
ahead.
is actually, I'm on my husband's computer. This is Catherine Wolf. And
Hi, Catherine.
I agree with everything that Jenny Pavlovic just said. She covered some of the points that I wanted to cover. I'm very reluctant to give my address as well. We live right on the border of the city of Middleton and town of Springfield on the flight path, but we have been intimidated. I've been very reluctant to report any of the problems that we've had with low flights, but we have a 6-acre greenway behind our house. The flights have been so low that all of the wildlife has left that area. We had a great horned owl and we had some barred owls earlier, and those are all gone, but that's probably not as germane to this as it needs to be. We've been living here for almost 32 years. Our house was built over 60 years ago, and this whole neighborhood consists of people who have houses and have lived here a long time. So the parts of your report that talk about people moving into the community, and that's why there's such a problem with the low-flying planes. I don't have the page number on that, but I just wanted to make that comment that we've been living here a long time and have never had the kinds of problems that we've had in the last year and a half. And when my husband was suggested as an appointment to the airport commission, the number of planes that went close over our house was astronomical for that whole week. And, you know, people are not making this up. This is true. We live on a hill. And so reporting also would be problematic because of the way the airport records the geography. So behind our house, we're on a hill, but then the planes fly really low. So they're just barely over the trees. the loud, the big white Cirrus plane, and has been one of them. But and so they don't necessarily record how close they are to the house. But I have been in the shower, and the shower has shook when I was in the shower. We've listened to basketball games, and we both have hearing losses now. And we have the TV turned up very loud, and these planes are very loud over our house. So just to sort of set the table here, before I move into specific points that I wanted to make. First of all, on page, let's see, page 91, where you talk about improving the Middleton Municipal Airport, and there's a statement, $4,000 in value added to the Middleton economy. Value added, I know that term because I've worked in business. Where's the citation on that? Where's the proof that that is a value added? Citizen groups have done open records requests and find that the airport is not really in the kind of shape that's been represented. And so I would really caution some of these statements need to have some kind of citation with them. I primarily focused, except for looking at the cultural piece with the First Nations, because I worked with the tribes for over 10 years. And I spoke with one of the tribal elders, First Nations, page 88, where you talk with partnering, excuse me, with the First Nations. I gotta adjust this. Okay. And the woman I spoke to indicated she's on the statewide Tribal Elders Association. They have not been meeting because of the pandemic. But Native Americans value the way you treat other people. Their values focus on protecting children, where you don't fly low planes over schools, focus on wetlands, and water is sacred to Native Americans. And the way you treat your neighbors is with respect. And the way that we have been treated in the towns of Middleton and Springfield has absolutely been abhorrent. Really, and really inaccurate reporting on most of the text regarding the airport. But getting back to your goals, I don't see how expanding the airport meets the really wonderful, we have loved Middleton. We moved here because of the goals of environmental stewardship and being a good neighbor community and caring about being a bird city. You know, these goals do not fit with, with expansion of the airport. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Expanding the airport. My time is up?
Your time is up.
Okay, can I take my husband's time now?
He would have to speak if he wants to, so it's
He's got a very sore throat. He's not able to speak. So I will handle the environmental comments if I may, please.
Okay, please keep them short.
I will
if
keep
you
them
could.
short.
Okay,
Goal
thank
number
you.
7 under mitigating climate change. The increased air pollution that's reported by the EPA on a document that was never attached to your work and has not been made publicly available, but it's the EPA report of a couple of years ago, I believe it's 2 years ago, talking about all the air pollution that's occurring from the Maury Field Airport. You know, they're using some lead planes, and everybody corrects me and says, oh, it's low lead. It's lead. Bottom line, we're talking lead. So if you're over our aquifer with your airport, if you're going to expand that airport, talk about the lead, especially with the flood concerns and how that can be carried to other areas. You've got impervious surfaces there. So the wetland cannot do its job anymore as you continue to expand the airport. And it increases greenhouse gas emissions. On page 99, you've got what is a wonderful goal: eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. Planes increase gas emissions. It does not fit with any kind of a climate change agenda whatsoever. It's probably the most inefficient. It's probably works. It's probably the most inefficient mode of transportation. Excuse me. So I don't know how the expanding the airport meets 100% renewable goal. It's not a best practice for this community. And there's so much information here about economic benefits to the airport, alienating all of the people who shop and eat and buy gas and recreate in the town of Middleton. We're all one big community. You can't separate us out. And we spend a lot of money on taxes and goods and services and dining, all of us in this community. So if you expand the airport, I'm not sure what the ramifications are from an economic cost benefit analysis. Let's compare what you think you're going to make with your, I don't know, value added
Catherine, could you
$4,000.
please wind up now? So
All right, I'll wind up.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously I'm not happy about this expansion, and I'm not happy with the way public comments over the past year and a half have not all been recorded. Dozens, and I'll wrap up, dozens and dozens of people have shown up at meetings, and Mark has not taken down the minutes that include the public comments. We tried to get the meetings recorded. No, the city won't spend the money to have recordings at that point. We're talking, a year ago, but all these people showed up and commented. So to reduce the report now down to quote unquote from Mr. Maury, the whiners, the fact is we're in a pandemic, and to pursue public hearings in a pandemic on such a contentious issue is not being a good neighbor. And I'm very, very disappointed. I'll end my comments now.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that. So Abby, who's next? And
we
please
are
keep
just-
track of time. So
Again, how would you like me to record location? This previous speaker mentioned she's on the border of the city of Middleton and the town of Springfield. I think she meant the town of Middleton and the town of Springfield.
yeah,
Is that
well, I
correct?
guess I don't know
May I speak?
if there's a Larry or
You know,
somebody.
May I
if
speak? I'll give my address.
Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I was muted. I've given my address before, and it's just horrendous how much plane traffic. There's no way to protect us. There's absolutely no way.
I
But
simply asked if you're in the town. or
1550, yeah, I know, Mark. 1552 Hickory Trail. The old neighborhoods, not new people that have moved in.
Okay, thank
And-
you, Catherine. I appreciate that. Okay, Abby, who's next? And please keep track of the time. I'm depending on you. So
I don't see anyone else with their hand raised.
Yeah,
Oh,
my
actually, I
apologies,
take that back.
Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
it sounds like we have a speaker coming in on the phone, and also we do have a couple of
Yes.
raised hands now after this one.
okay,
Yes,
who is this?
I'm on the phone. Robert Owen on the phone.
Okay, Robert, go ahead.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Robert Owen. I live at 1311 Middleton Street in the city of Middleton. I have comments on the draft comprehensive plan. First, as to the transportation section, it does not address electric vehicles. It should. They're coming, as are electric trucks and electric heavy equipment. Lighter electric equipment like lawnmowers and even riding lawnmowers is already present and economic. The transportation section also should address the decarbonization at Maury Airport. Now, one of the previous speakers was talking about the leaded fuel. They do have leaded fuel. They use 100 LL aviation gas for piston aircraft, and that's leaded. So it is putting out lead emissions. It's also putting out carbon dioxide. And I have concerns about that. In fact, if the airport's traffic increases, it'll be putting out more carbon dioxide, and it'll be, if this continues for a period of years, it will be the portion of Middleton's carbon budget that we're not addressing, because we are going to be reducing our carbon emissions from surface transport as we convert to very efficient electric vehicles and so forth. And in fact, there are ways to reduce the carbon footprint of aircraft by, in some cases, using electric aircraft as for short distance trainers, and certain other types of aircraft. Also, we can use biofuels for aircraft, for piston aircraft, and we can use renewable jet fuel made from ethanol. In some cases, there are other options that are being developed, but I do not think that it's appropriate for the airport to be exempt from the overall effort to reduce carbon footprint in Middleton. We voted 81% to 19% to reduce the city's operational carbon footprint in 2016. That includes the airport. The airport's not entitled to an exemption. But that's all I have to say about the airport. I also would like to see, I appreciate the fact that the plan calls for assisting lower income people to weatherize and insulate and make their homes more energy efficient. I think it would be even better if it provided for low interest revolving loans for energy efficiency and heat pumps. Perhaps such a loan fund could get seed funding from the federal government under a stimulus program that could be enacted in the coming months.
Bob, your time is
draft-
up.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Bob, go ahead and wrap up if you have a few more seconds.
Oh,
Just
okay.
because-
Let me try to speed through the end here. I'd also like to see the city plan to address the natural gas conversion situation for heating in our community. We have to get off natural gas. That is a fossil fuel. There's nothing in the plan dealing with that issue. And also with regard to microgrids, we need to have a reliable, renewable local fuel for those if we want them to operate, because natural gas grid and electric grid are subject to the same potential problem. If Russian or other foreign bad actors decide to turn them off, they can turn both of them off at the same time. So thank you. That's my remarks. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Excellent points. I'm sure someone is recording this, and this is being recorded in any case. So who's next, Abby?
Next is Ann Fisher.
Hi,
And you're
everybody.
up.
How are you? Can
Go
you
ahead,
hear me
Ann.
okay?
Yeah.
I just had a couple of comments. I really appreciate the thoroughness of the plan, and I can see that tons and tons of effort was put here to really truly have a comprehensive plan to guide policy in our city, and I appreciate that. I do have some concerns about some inconsistencies that I'm seeing, and partially that is as a result of being involved currently in a discussion about sidewalks being installed against the wishes of all the residents affected on Mayflower Drive. On page 30, the action statement about adopting the Complete Street program, I think, some of the inconsistencies I see there is, on the one hand, they talk about the one size shouldn't fit all, that there should be input from the community. And then on the other hand, if you go to the next page, on page 31, they talk about adding sidewalks and narrowing streets as part of reconstruction projects. I'm looking for language that helps, a stronger language that will help make sure that community members are involved, and that this one size fits all is a true way of acting, because right now it sounds to me more like we're going to do a project, we will narrow the street and add big sidewalks. And I don't think that is a good policy to have. I think that, there are streets such as Mayflower Drive in Columbus where having those wide streets, and there's some historical perspective there. It's a small street. It's a neighborhood that's not traveled much, and it's been very safe and had no sidewalks for 60 years. The sidewalk needs map, I think, is a really great addition to the plan. And I know that they talked at the pedestrian transit group that they were going to not prioritize those. I guess what my comment regarding that might be, if in fact the city is thinking about moving to look at a very established neighborhood such as, the Saks Woods area, I think there has to be city council funds that go to those sidewalks. It should not then become the responsibility of homeowners who've been perhaps residing for 50 years in a home, and the city is now deciding to narrow streets and add sidewalks. So I'd like to see some consideration as far as that funding. And I think that's a missing policy. I know that was brought up early in 2020 with Sean's department. You know, the last part I'll just connect with that is, you know, we place value on urban tree canopy. We talk about carbon valuation on page 99. On page 103, there's a lot of discussion about diversity and urban canopy.
And your time is up.
Okay, I'll wrap up. On page 85, the idea of protecting and enhancing historic character of a community. And I think those are all elements that have to be considered when we're looking at the complete streets policy so that we honor really the full contract here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Anne. Really appreciate that. Excellent points. Next one, Abby.
Next up is Alderwoman Kathy Olson.
Kathy.
Hi. I have two things I wanted to speak on, and things that parking standards is something that I receive a lot of feedback from my constituents on. And I support reducing the parking minimums, but I do not support the eliminating parking minimums. Instead of eliminating the standard, I would use the reduction in the parking requirements as an incentive for businesses and landlords to provide public transportation passes instead. And then we can reduce the number of parking spots required if they cooperate with providing public transit passes. The other issue that I receive a lot of feedback on, and I have reached out to constituents, is on the downtown infill goals. The infill goals for downtown should recognize the difference between the business district of the downtown and the downtown residential neighborhood, which should bump up against each other. I would like to include some verbiage that recognize downtown infill projects will be sensitive and compatible with adjacent historic homes and landmarks. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. Who is next, Abby?
Next is Kermit Hovey.
Kermit, you're up.
Hello, thanks. My name's Kermit Hovey. One of my areas of passionate concern and engagement over many years is climate change and sustainability. Not surprisingly, I find the comprehensive plan comprehensive, but I do want to recognize, as some of the comments already made have effectively implied, comprehensive is not the same thing as complete. Nevertheless, I do want to praise and applaud the plan for its promising broad suite and embrace of general principles of sustainability. In particular, I want to affirm and encourage the implementation and follow through on the Green City chapter and the sustainability principles that show up throughout the plan. In particular, I would really want to see the climate lens applied to all decisions that the city makes. Not that there's some particular plan item or action that's buried in this document, but that the overarching principle of addressing and engaging the climate challenge is fully embraced. And for that to be the case, it really needs to be recognized in many places. It's not just a job for the Sustainability Committee to be worried about this. Every single department, every single committee needs to factor this into what they do moving forward if we are to have a common home worth living in that is survivable for us and our children and our children's children. Plans on shelves are different from plans in hearts and minds. I do want to encourage people to keep this plan up in their thinking going forward. We need to push the boundaries. We need to round up and lean in. The decisions that we need to make and will be confronting are going to be critical for this planet and for our ability to live in it and live in it well. So push the boundaries, challenge the rules. We may need to push back on the state, find ways to persuade them to make local rule happen in important ways like building codes, where we could possibly address a very significant source of carbon emissions. And we need to acknowledge that this is going to be a plan that will be refined over time, and details will need to be worked out. And to that extent, I think we all have an opportunity to make that happen. And as a member and vice chair of the Sustainability Committee, I am committing myself to do my part, and I encourage everybody else to do theirs. Thank you.
Excellent, Kermit. Thank you. Maybe.
Mayor, I have a quick question. Again, as minute taker, do you want me to just not put addresses down because people are not providing addresses? And it doesn't matter to me either way. I just want to be consistent.
Okay, so what would Larry Beckler say if we were to ask him? Is it required legally, or we could do without it?
I just want to make sure we're fair to everybody. If we're either putting addresses in or not, or if we put in neighborhoods, if people give a reason, it doesn't matter to me, but consistently in the past, we've done addresses. I just want to know what your decision is so that we can be consistent.
I would like, in the past, I think legal opinion was that we did want the address, but I know we had the controversy on this. So I would, I will encourage everyone to please provide your address or at least your neighborhood.
And that's what I'm willing to do for people who are indicating they don't want to identify their address. I can mention the neighborhood. I think, if they've stated a reason that they feel is not appropriate to list their address, and there could be other reasons for not listing an address, for privacy or safety reasons.
Okay.
I get that. So
Yeah.
I just want to know
Have
what
addresses for the last 4 speakers, for Bob, Ann, Kathy, and Kermit, if you're comfortable with us including those in the minutes.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Mhm.
I just want to know so I don't have to interrupt and ask again. I want to be consistent. Thank you.
Okay, so the next, please state your name and your address if you feel comfortable, and you have 30 minutes.
Hello, I'd be willing to speak. My name is Robert. Hello, are we getting some interference?
Yes, you have too many things on. I don't know what they are, so.
No, I don't have anything but the computer on here. So anyhow, let me, we're getting some interference from someplace. Hello.
Can everyone who's not speaking, please make sure that you are muted?
Okay. Hello, my name is Robert Bartholomew, 3316 River Birch Lane. I'm on the incoming flight path to Maury's. They fly low. I've got the tire tracks on my roof to prove that. My comments are concerning the 2021 comprehensive plan, the transportation section, and specifically the airport. I'm on the impact committee and aware of the important community and aviation relationships. Consequently, I urge the following as far as the comprehensive plan. 1, delete the words potentially and below from minimizing the potentially negative effects of below pattern altitude flights over residential areas surrounding the airport. Those are quotes found on page 52. Such negative impacts are already in existence, and the current Maury Airport policy and procedures fail to take into account the higher elevations to the west and south of Maury Airport, resulting in daily loud, low, disruptive flights over numerous residences and schools in the vicinity of Maury Airport. Next is a takeoff on a federal statute requiring the balancing of aviation and community priorities. So what you need to do is add the federal balance and aviation priorities language of A, minimizing airport noise impacts on the air. Well, we're getting some, can we pause for a minute? Because we've been getting some interference coming in.
Okay, go ahead, Bob. So I think.
Okay, but I don't want to lose any time over this either.
No, we can hear you, so thank you.
Okay. to add the federal balance and aviation priority language of A, minimizing airport noise impacts on nearby communities, protecting natural resources, and B, airports should be compatible with surrounding communities, maintaining a balance between the needs of aviation, the environments, and the requirements of residents. That's from the statute, DOT statute. 3, respect and keep the committee's commitments to compatible land use and resolution 1998-20 to A, restrict the airport's runway length to 4,000 feet, B, to not support the construction of crosswind runway, and C, urge pilots to follow flight patterns or commercial and industrial areas away from residential areas. Clean air is important for quality of life and health, especially important during respiratory virus public health pandemic. According to the EPA, hazardous air pollutants are those known to cause cancer and other serious health impacts. Moore Airport's 2017 total aggregate emission data reported to AEPA discloses 40 hazardous air pollutant emissions that include lead and 2,433.76 aggregate pounds of hazardous pollutant emissions and 6,870.82 aggregate pounds of volatile organic compound emissions. Please create an airport plan to reduce and not increase the amount of more airports 40 listed hazardous air
Bob, your
pollutants.
time is up.
Okay, I'm just finished.
Wrap up, please.
Just finishing up the sentence. Air pollutant emissions contained in his 2017 report to the Environmental Protection Agency and the upcoming 2020 Moore Airport EPA report to be publicly disclosed on the city's website. That's it.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. So who is next, Abby?
I don't see anyone else that's raising their hand.
Anyone else who may want to speak for the draft of the Milton Comprehensive Plan? Anyone who may want to speak for the draft City of Milton Comprehensive Plan? Okay, if there's no one who wants to speak, I'm going to close that part of the public hearing. And it's beyond 7:15, 7:05, we're going to open the public hearing for conditional use permit for Hidden Cave Side 2500 Pleasant View Road, number 102. Anybody who wants to speak either for or against this? Maybe you want to provide a short introduction, or you think it's understood?
Please let somebody else talk.
I
Conditional
do
use
see
permit,
one
Hidden
person with
Cave
their, there is one person with their hand raised, Walker Fanning. And also, if you'd like just a brief overview, Daphne
Okay,
prepared
please
the
identify
staff.
yourself. Identify yourself and give your address, and you have 30 minutes.
Hey, I'm Walker Fanning. I'm the owner of Hidden Cave Cidery. I just want to say that I'm really excited and I'm hopeful for moving into this new space. I've been making hard cider for over 3 years, and for the last 2 years, I've been operating my business out of Old Sugar Distillery in downtown Madison. We make a lot of different, really fun flavors of hard cider. And one promise that I've made ever since the beginning was to only use Wisconsin apples. And that's because I grew up in Middleton. I went to Northside Elementary, Cromery Middle School, Middleton High School. I went to UW-Madison, and I got a degree in agronomy, which is essentially large-scale agriculture. I started working on a farm as an orchard manager, learned how to make hard cider. And when I started my own company, I had the choice to go to different states and buy apples from cheaper or apples that are more available throughout the year. But I really want to invest in the state's agriculture, and I want to use my business as a platform to do so. And so we get apples from Apple Barn in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, Kickapoo Orchard in Gays Mills, Wisconsin. We just got another one from Westridge Orchard in Kickapoo, Wisconsin. And yeah, so just really excited. And love to be a bigger part of the community in Middleton. And I think this will be a first big step here. So thank you.
Thank you, Walker. It looks, what you have proposed looks great. So, okay, so anyone else who may want to speak at this time? Okay, I'm going to close that part of the public hearing, and we're going to go to the public hearing number 3, which is sign variance for Adams Outdoor Advertising parcel 255-078-023-4537-2. This is the Airport Road Business Park First Edition. Anybody who wants to speak either for or against this?
Mayor, if
Jason
there's no-
Sari has his hand raised.
Okay. All right. Please go ahead. You have 30 minutes and identify yourself and give your address and speak.
I do have a presentation to give on behalf of Adams. So I just wanted to make sure, am I giving that at a separate time? It's the PDF that was previously sent.
So Abby, that will be in the later section, right? When the
Yeah, if
that
he's
item is up
speaking
or not?
on, if he's representing the applicant, I would recommend that we put that later when we're discussing the agenda item, since we do have another public hearing still advertised.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be okay with you? Okay, all right. Anybody
Mayor,
else?
we do have comments from, in the packet from Liz Copling, Lenia Stens, Corey Katsukowski, Becky Aberhart, and Aaron Thornley Parisi. Those were included with his submittal. It's a
And
little,
Stens is on the line and has her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Stens.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great.
You're good.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to speak on behalf of the nonprofits that Adams supports in the community.
Yeah.
Those of you who are in
Could
Middleton
you
are
please
probably,
identify yourself and give your address if you don't
I'm
mind?
so sorry, home address or work address?
Oh, yeah. Whatever you please, so. what
Okay,
address is
so
fine.
it's Lenia Stens.
Feels like a night.
And my address at Gilda's Club is 7907 UW Health Court.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So for those of you who are familiar with Gilda's Club Madison, we serve families who are facing cancer in the community. And we provide free emotional support, cancer education, wellness opportunities, all kinds of great things. And our total budget for support for promotion in the community is about $2,500. And so we struggle to make sure that the community is aware of our organization. And so I'm here speaking on behalf of Adams simply because they have a fantastic program called the Collaborate program. And at the point in time when we were chosen as a Collaborate partner, we were seeing about 24 people per month who have a cancer diagnosis walk through our door. And by the time the campaign finished, we were seeing 60 people per month coming through our door who are dealing with cancer. It was a huge difference for us. I mean, that's 432 people per year who are dealing with cancer that don't have to deal with it alone. And for those of you who know about the flood that we experienced in August, where we took on 500,000 gallons of water, I can honestly say that because of the community support that we had and the community awareness we had, in part because of Adams, we were able to come back from that flood and survive 1.4 million in damages.
Oh, no, there's a whole bunch, but I think we're getting closer to the.
So I hope that you guys will strongly consider Adam's cause tonight
I don't
and
see her.
take that into account.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. That really means a lot coming from you. Okay, next one, please. Anyone else?
I don't see anyone else with.
Abby,
their-
I see Jean Whittish who keeps trying to raise her hand.
Jean Whitish, are you
Okay,
on the line?
Jean.
don't see
Jean
you.
Whitish.
Jean Whitish.
Jean, you are muted. I see your lips moving, but we cannot hear you. Now you're.
Oh, okay. I just want to see.
Christine Ferdinand, we can hear you speaking. You are not muted. Jean Whitish, we can't hear you.
If you want, she can give me a call if she's having technical problems. She can call my phone and then.
You want to call Mark? Let me give you his number, Jean. He's at 608-821-8394.
8394. Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody else who wants to speak before she does? I see somebody else raising their hand.
All right, the call's here.
Okay, go ahead.
Oops. Jean?
I'm there.
Hi, you're on.
Okay, go ahead, Jean.
I'm gonna mute this because I'm reverberating back now.
You're on speakerphone. I think people can hear you.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay,
Jean.
I'm calling to represent the landowner, LB Land Investment. And we have had other dealings with Adams and have found them to be true to their word. The projects have looked good from the road. We obviously still have a vested interest in the rest of the land out there and would like to support the application.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeannie. I appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who may want to speak? Okay, I'm going to close. Anyone else who may want to speak? I'm going to close that part of the public hearing. And we're going to go to public
Mayor.
hearing.
Oh, actually, I'm pretty sure she has her hand raised for the next hearing. So go ahead.
Okay. We are on to public hearing number 4. This is a public hearing for rezoning from R1 single family to planned development district. This is the general implementation plan for Koteshwar Kaitukam 7103 Twin Sunset Road. Anybody?
Cindy Keller had her hand raised. Cindy, did you want to speak?
I was actually just checking to see where we are. I thought we were right on the edge, so I was just double checking to see which item we were on. But I was also wondering, was there some place that on here we could register what we were kind of logging into this meeting for? I noticed the chat is not open to kind of register. I know we have quite a number of people present at the meeting.
So we, all the plan commission members got anyone who signed the petition. And I have gone through every single email that any of you have sent. And I'm sure the other plan commission members have as well. So, but you know, this is a public hearing. You are still, anyone who wants to speak, you are welcome.
Yeah.
Give your name and your address, and you have 30 minutes.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't wish to speak. I just want to clarify that.
Okay, please, if you're not speaking, could you keep yourself at mute if you don't mind? Thank you. Okay.
Kyla has her hand raised.
Kyla, okay. Please go ahead and identify yourself and give your address, and you have 30 minutes. Kyla? Hello? Yeah, please go.
She's having a microphone problem.
Unmute yourself Identify yourself, give your address, and you have 3 minutes.
She says somebody else can go and she'll try to on her phone.
Okay, who is next, Abby?
I don't see anyone else who has their hands raised, but if you'd like, Mark.
I
can
see it,
go ahead and-
Gary.
Oh,
Gary?
Joy Kerber just raised her hand.
And then,
Okay,
and then
Joy.
Gary.
Okay, first Joy and then Gary. Joy, go ahead.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Joy Kerber and I live at 8762 White Coral Way. I live in the corner house off of White Coral Way and Evergreen. I'm the very first house as you enter the Hidden Oaks neighborhood. I apologize, my letter did get in, I think, right past 4:30, but hopefully you did at least see it in your inbox. I would like to just raise some concerns about the plan of the 2 duplexes and how they relate to kind of the Twin Sunset Road, which is single family older homes, and coming into the Hidden Oaks neighborhood, which are 2-story homes, some larger, some a little smaller. I don't see how the duplexes are a transition when there are no other multi-level units within our 2 neighborhoods. I do recognize that there is the Whispering condos up on the hill, but those are off of Pleasant View Road, and honestly, 3 seasons out of the year, not visible from my home, which is right at the corner. I understand the need for housing in Middleton. I moved here from Georgia, and I understand the housing prices in Middleton versus other country. When we did look, one of the other areas we looked at was Mount Horeb. I think that the way that they have their transitional housing has been very well done because it was planned out from the start. So there are single family homes mixed with duplexes, but this is throughout their whole new community that has been being built for 10 years. My husband and family and I chose to move to this specific neighborhood because we loved the Hidden Oaks neighborhood, loved the amenities that the city had to offer with the paths across the street. And we also fell in love with the fact that we felt like we were a little bit out in the country with the Twin Sunset Road adjacent to us. And my other concern is the safety. Many of us have very small children under the age of 10, both on my side of the street as well as Twin Sunset. Our children cross back and forth over the crosswalk to play with one another. We have visibility right now. Building 2 large duplexes is going to block our view. There's going to be at least 8 additional cars in those units, as well as guests that will park along the street. I would love if we could see him build a single family home or 2 small single family homes. I welcome new neighbors, new families to our community, but feel that 2 duplexes with 4 units is not consistent with Twin and Oaks neighborhood. That is all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So Abby, who is next now?
Kurt Paulson had mentioned Gary, but I am not showing Gary's hand raised. Gary, did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay. Okay, my name is Gary Hoffman, and I'm a 35-year resident of 7104 Twin Sunset Road. And just before I go on, I appreciate what Joy just told you. I concur very strongly with her assessment. But I am speaking to urge a no vote on the recommendation to rezone the lot at 7103 Twin Sunset Road to DPP-GIP. The lot has been zoned R1 since I moved here in 1976. I object to the building of 2 3-story buildings on that lot, since it would clearly be out of the character with the Twin Sunset and Hidden Oaks neighborhoods, which are single-family homes. I would have no problem, as Joy just mentioned, that a single-story home on that lot on 7103 Twin Sunset Road would be appropriate. Okay, I'm just trying to look at my notes here. Let's see, that was because, well, you know, R1, the zoning, the current zoning of R1 has been in place. It's and you know, and the intent was to build a single family home. I'm also a little concerned about the potential impact on any future sale of my property, since my living room windows look directly out onto the lot. I'm not sure, you know, prospective buyers would appreciate looking at 3-story buildings right out the window. Again, I urge a no vote to the reason of 7103 Twin Sunset Road to PPDGIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. And I have known you and your house for about 24, 25 years, and really appreciate your input. Okay, who is next?
Next is Kyla Schoenwetter.
Kyla,
Yep, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I had some audio issues. So I live on 7116 Twin Sunset Road, and I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to oppose the proposed rezoning because not only does it directly affect my family, but my neighbors on Twin Sunset and in the Hidden Oaks community. First, the proposed rezoning makes me extremely nervous for the safety of my kids, and Joy nailed it on the head. My kids, my neighbors, her kids come over and they play on our small little cul-de-sac. Placing 2 large duplexes will completely obstruct any view we have of our school-age children crossing the street to go to the bus stop, coming home, when going to their friend's house or to the park. The addition of 8+ vehicles on one lot makes me wonder how many vehicles are going to need to be parked on the street. Twin Sunset is way too narrow to support any on-street parking. This will make it extremely difficult for any emergency service vehicles, snowplows, sanitation workers, etc., from gaining any access to our homes. There's also increased risk of danger for our children if cars park on the street. Our kids for the past 11 years have been able to freely play on this road because there is no traffic. And my concern is having cars parked on the street is going to obstruct views and potentially injure one of our children. Secondly, it's the water issues. I know this concern has been shared repeatedly, but unless you have truly lived in this immediate area, you have no idea how the placement of 2 large structures will put our homes at risk. Over the last 2 years, I've had 3 significant water issues in my basement, and I live on the highest part of Twin Sunset Road. Lot 7103 is the lowest lot on our street and is consistently in standing water anytime there is a heavy rain. How will it be guaranteed that our homes will not suffer from increased flooding when a majority of the green space and the majestic trees located on that lot are removed? All you have to do is enter the Hidden Oaks community and see the retention ponds are the highest they've ever been in the last 8 years that I have lived here. Many residents in the Hidden Oaks area have had their sub pumps running nonstop for days after a heavy rain. And the fact is the water has to go somewhere and our homes should not be put at risk. And lastly, Twin Sunset is an older neighborhood. All but 2 houses on this street are single level homes. There is no way to blend in a 35-foot or 3-level duplex. It's just not possible and ridiculous to think so. Some of my neighbors, like Gary just said, he will completely lose any view that he had from their front window that they've owned in the home for 35 years. The homes in the GO community are all single family homes. There are no multi-unit complexes between us. So this proposal does not offer a transition between the two neighborhoods. I take pride where I live. My neighbors are my family. We look out for each other. And right now I feel lied to, I feel sucker punched, and I quite frankly feel stomped on. At no time has Mr. Koshar reached out to any of us with these new proposals. When he first met us, we were told it was going to be a single family home with the mother-in-law suite, which was totally reasonable. We welcomed it and we were excited. But never has there been a conversation with any of us on the street about making it 2 lots and putting in duplexes.
Kyla, your time is up.
Okay, I'm just finishing. You don't add complexes like this on one lot in a neighborhood that's been around for 40 years. That is not the good neighbor thing to do. So in conclusion, I oppose the rezoning, and I think as indicated by the petition signed by all of Twin Sunset, majority of Hidden Oaks, a majority of residents in these two neighborhoods also oppose the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else, Abby?
Next up is Deb Murison.
Okay, Deb.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, please give your name and your address, and then you got 3 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will do that. My name is Deb Mearson. I live at 2622 Sand Pearl Trail in the Hidden Oaks neighborhood. I would like to speak to the weight given to what is apparently the socio and economic considerations of this redevelopment, which I don't believe play out truly. This development is anticipated by the zoning change to be a transitional option between the high density condominiums to the north, which are the Whispering Pines, which are 90 units, and the lower density housing to the south, which is our neighborhood, Hidden Oaks, at 121 units. 4 units does not transitional housing make. That argument, I believe, is false and shouldn't carry any weight. Second reason is I'd also like to address is that this is also being purported as affordable housing. It's a tired argument, and it's less than effective when you consider what they will probably have to build these houses at. They will tend to be very costly given building supplies and labor changes due to the COVID in the market. So the costly build of this will drive up the sales prices or the rental cost. It's not yet clear whether these will be sales or rentals. Beyond the affordability of the socioeconomic class that the owner alludes to want to serve. Lastly, while workforce development or workforce housing is desirable, it should be located near transit lines, close by shopping and other amenities, and not in a semi-rural hideaway community such as Twin Sunset. I'm going to give deference to Kyla and Joy, who have already done a great job enumerating the reasons why this doesn't belong in this neighborhood. It is a discordant infill build that does not complement the neighborhood. And I would like to again encourage the Plan Commission against the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next one is, I don't know who was first, Cindy Keller, and then followed by Cody Phillips or Jordan Foster. Cindy, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay, identify yourself and your address, and you've got 3 minutes.
Of course. My name is Cindy Keller, and I live at 8783 Evergreen Road. I think also my letter came in just a little bit late, but I would like to basically reiterate what many of the people have been saying tonight, and also on the many, many emails and letters that have been received by you. I would encourage a no vote for a variety of reasons, particularly the idea that a 3-story building in the middle of an area that has been zoned for single family dwellings since 1975, 1976 is absolutely out of character for this particular neighborhood. 2 stories, that makes sense as is reasonable, but 3 stories is absolutely out of character for this area. The other is that in looking at this, again, As Deb mentioned, there has been a significant number, over 80 signatures from the residents in both Hidden Oaks and in Twin Sunset opposing this particular rezoning. The current owner of this lot knew when they purchased the home that it was zoned for a single family dwelling. And to change it and try to get it rezoned for a multiplex and ask it to be transitional, again, considering what Deb and others have mentioned, it just doesn't fit. It would be a multiplex in the middle of a bunch of single family dwellings. Quite frankly, where I sit, because I sit right across the street from this lot, you can't even see the actual condominiums that are being referenced in the application for rezoning. So this idea that it is transitional seems a little bit far-fetched. The other thing too, and I hate to bring this up, but it's a reality that we all need to think about when we purchase and make a very, very high stakes purchase in that home. It's that, something that we do want to consider is what the potential impact is on our property values. Has there been any sort of long-term study on the impact of our property values if this should go in? If this long-term study has been done and it doesn't show or indicate that there would be a significant impact, that would be different, but I have not seen anything that any sort of study has been in fact done. Does it make sense to potentially decrease or have property values of the 124 houses in Hidden Oaks and the approximate 7 or 8 houses right across from this particular lot, not increasing in their values and thus not increasing the tax base of the city for a small increase in tax base for one single lot that is being developed?
Your time is up, Cindy.
I'm just wondering how much that has been researched, and I really feel like that should actually be researched and considered a little bit in addition to before a vote is taken.
Thank you. I appreciate Cindy. Now the next one is Jordan or Cody, and then will be followed by Adam.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, everyone.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of echo here.
Can everyone who's not speaking please make sure that you're muted?
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. I actually have my hand. Sorry, it's actually, I think it might be our other computer here because I have my parents here with me. I raised my hand to defer to them. I still want to speak after them, but for some reason on their Zoom, we're not getting the option to raise hands.
Okay, you want Mark or your mother to speak?
Yeah, Phillips family, I think is their name.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, all right, you're up.
Need to speak, Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead and speak, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Mark Phillips. I own a home on Twin Sunset. I trust you all have taken the time to read our emails. And I'd like to go ahead and thank the many neighbors who have spoken already. I appreciate so much. Love your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Those are great words because we all should love our neighbors. The mural on the Roman candle at University in Parmenter is really nice. You've seen it, I hope. We need to keep those words in mind as our country needs to really care about each other and think about how our actions affect others. Please respect the current homeowners. We love our neighborhood. Just to approve the proposal of 2 large duplexes in the name of affordable housing is simply wrong. You will destroy the character and scale of the neighborhood. The majority of Hidden Oaks and all of Twin Sunset do not support this. Even the city's own future 2020 land use plan seems to contradict what is being proposed. Please refer to page 21 within that paragraph titled Established Neighborhood, where it states to preserve the scale and character of the neighborhood. Yes, we do need affordable housing, but this property with a bus stop almost a half a mile away that only operates Monday through Friday at peak commute hours and no grocery stores or gas stations within walking distance seems to be the opposite of where we should be considering to have the affordable housing. That weighed against the negative impacts to the surrounding homes affected by the size of this proposal. I urge you to reconsider the zoning change. One home on this lot is by far better to retain the feel of this beautiful area and to make it more desirable to the forgotten middle class. What about our property values? I have great memories growing up here. In fact, the neighborhood today is a lot like I remember. Neighbors looking out for each other and the kids out and about enjoying themselves on this quiet cul-de-sac. My parents built a home here in 1964. My wife and I now own that same home. By the way, it was R1 then. We would never have imagined anything other than one single family home at 7103. To think about the possible oversized duplexes on that lot has caused a lot of stress and anxiety for many neighbors. If you read the emails, we are concerned about many issues, with water runoff being a major one. We have water issues now. The size of this project will only exacerbate them. Many homes in Hidden Oaks already run their sump pumps 24/7. In closing, I urge you to vote with your heart and think of every neighbor and turn down this proposal. Let's keep this part of the Middleton area the special place that it is for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Next one is Adam.
Actually, this is Candell Phillips. I'd like the opportunity to speak
sure,
as well.
Sure, go ahead. You got 3 minutes.
First of all, we did receive update from the city, and it seemed to imply that there's going to be a deferral of any motion to approve for about 2 weeks from today. Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's what it says under the recommendation area of your agenda tonight. That while the staff report contains a proposal motion recommending approval to the Common Council, it may be necessary to defer any motion to approve for 2 weeks so that the site plan and GIP text are in alignment.
Okay.
I can only assume that that's because Kodeshwar is being counseled by the city that he's going to have to make some changes because of all the uproar from the citizens in this area. My name is Candell Phillips, and my husband is terribly upset about the proposed rezoning for a lot in the neighborhood that he loves, and that anything other than single-family housing would be allowed in this area, as his words just implied. I see the pride he's taken in caring for the house his parents loved, the place he grew up in, and the neighborhood he enjoyed so much as a child. New families have moved into the neighborhood and continue to enjoy this lovely little area in Middleton. Their children play in the cul-de-sac, much like my husband and other kids from homes on Twin Sunset did years ago. While I walked through the Hidden Oaks neighborhood, going door to door with our petition, I saw their lovely single-family homes and children playing in the park and sledding down the big hill. While I understand the need for rental properties in Middleton, I just don't think this is the right location for it. And I urge you to deny this application to rezone lot 7103 to PDD. When talking to the homeowners in both neighborhoods, the common sentiment is how much they love the quietness of the area in which they live, and that they do not understand why the city would approve rezoning this one lot to PDD. Why couldn't the lot be divided and single-family homes be built to keep with the feel of these neighborhoods? That was on the agenda at one time, even though the city, I believe, or a couple of the members of the Plan Commission actually had the gall to suggest a 6 multifamily unit, I believe. In any case, I've always been proud to tell people I live in Middleton, the good neighbor city. Your signs entering the city say as much. Now, I don't know, not so much. The approval of this application to rezone lot 7103 from R1 to PDD will upset many residents of this good neighbor city and will not be the actions of a good neighbor. There are more suitable locations in the city for duplexes. This proposed development is too large, and it's not compatible use for this site. If this was a large area of land where a number of lots would be zoned for duplexes or other rentals, it would make sense. I don't know of any other area in Middleton that has only one lot with duplexes on it. Why would it be appropriate here? I cannot help but think that this zoning change would constitute what is known as spot zoning and designed solely to serve the private interests of one landowner, Kodeshwar Kadakam. The developer, Mayor Raga, has no experience with developing real estate. He's an IT manager, yet he too will benefit from this proposed development. It'll give him his quote unquote first development project. Why would an inexperienced developer be allowed to develop this potentially challenging lot with the present water and drainage issues? It makes absolutely no sense to me. And it opens up so many things that could go wrong. In closing, I respectfully ask you to please consider the concerns of all the residents in this area that have been presented. Please keep them in your thoughts when making a decision tonight on the rezoning of this lot, or 2 weeks from now, or whenever that may be. But my hope is the city will arrive at a mutually agreeable solution for everyone and conciliatory in nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendall. I appreciate that. So next one is Adam.
Yep.
Uh,
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Adam Schoenwetter. I agree with everything that's been said so far. Honestly, this is kind of interesting. This is something that's really brought our neighborhood together. Everybody's been talking and communicating a lot, pretty forcefully and upset about this whole thing and against this. Anyway, instead of just kind of repeating a lot of things that have been said tonight, I just want to state, bring something up that I see has been mentioned, but I haven't heard a response from the city. As you know, there's been a lot of flooding issues in our neighborhood for the last 3 years. My own house is at a much higher elevation than the 7103 lot. In the last 3 years, my basement has flooded 3 times. And just last summer, I had a well inspection done, which is in my backyard, which is one of the higher areas of my property. And the well technician said the water table is 30 feet below grade in my backyard. My well is probably at least that much higher in elevation than the 7103 lot. The houses on Twin Sunset were also the houses on Twin Sunset were mostly all built in the 1970s. Yet that lot, which is at the lowest elevation in our neighborhood, has remained undeveloped in one of the fastest growing cities in Wisconsin. But that probably isn't an accident. Our neighborhood is in a very marshy area. The Hidden Oaks neighborhood has many houses that have their sump pumps running nonstop a very large portion of the year. If you go walking through there, anytime really. The 7103 lot appears, just to the eye, to be at a lower elevation than the houses in the Hidden Oaks neighborhood. I've heard from neighbors that the city of Middleton was looking at possible solutions to all the flooding issues that the Hidden Oaks area has been having. It's been over 2 years, 2.5 years now, and I haven't heard any solutions or options yet. I don't know, has this been forgotten about the city, or is it still in discussion? I guess I don't know what the status of that is. I don't know how to look it up myself. If this lot gets developed, it may make the runoff problem worse for all of us, neighbors nearby. 7103 has had deep standing water on it twice in the last 2.5 years. If it is developed and a large amount of fill is brought in to get the lot above the water table, what does that do to the drainage issue for the rest of the area? Has the city of Middleton had any new hydrological surveys done? I would imagine raising the elevation of this lot to develop it would divert runoff to other homes nearby that are still currently at a high flooding risk. If so, this would have a huge negative impact on many homes in the Hidden Oaks and Twin Sunset neighborhoods. This rezoning issue seems to be getting rushed through without any due diligence done by the city in regards to the known flooding issues for the area. I would ask the city to hold off on making any decisions in regards to rezoning or development until it thoroughly studies the flooding and draining issues for this and the surrounding lots. Additionally, I have seen in previous meeting notes that it looks like the plans are to have the lot driveways to be connected to Twin Sunset Road, a small township funded and maintained road. If the city wants this developed so badly, why aren't they requiring access from city roads only? That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Is there anyone else, Abby, I can't see anyone else's hand.
Jeremy, well, I think that Cody Phillips still wanted to speak after his parents, and then also Jeremy Coulis has his hand raised.
Okay, Cody and then Jeremy.
All right. I just wanted to take some main points from my letter here to the Planning Commission. I read through the pertinent passages that I could find anyways in the 2021 comprehensive plan draft. There's a few things that stuck out to me as not exactly seeming to match with what is being proposed here. One of the main issues is, again, you've heard again over and over again from people in this neighborhood, is the character of existing neighborhoods. Of course, that's always important when anybody wants to change something and any development occurs. But we have this talk about the missing middle housing in that draft. And that's something that I can understand it. It makes sense to have that blended in when it makes, where it works. But frankly, even in the draft, in this comprehensive plan, it's talking about, well, let me quote here. Missing middle housing is a range of multi-unit or clustered housing types scaled between single-family detached houses and larger apartment buildings, end quote. So seeing that and talking about scaling these different types of homes, residences, scaling them, that doesn't mean you throw one that's completely different than the others just over and, because it's somewhat close to this large condominium complex, which you've heard lots of our neighbors state. You can only see it in the winter and you can see just the top of it. So it's not in any way in between. And also, frankly, the larger issue is that it talks about building walkable urban living. And this neighborhood is not walkable, unfortunately. We have the great path. Yes, I will admit that's wonderful. But that doesn't mean that it's easy to do and that somehow makes getting groceries or going anywhere else and making walking your main mode of transport any more realistic. And I don't think it is. And again, we've talked about how the bus does not run. It basically just, you have to have certain hours for it to work. If you're, I'm in healthcare. I don't take the bus, obviously. That's why I live here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it. I work hours. I work second shift. My significant other, Jordan, she works overnights at the hospital downtown. These are not things, there's no hours on that schedule that would work for people like that. I think that really goes against what we're seeing in this comprehensive plan. So I don't understand why it's being pushed on this piece. It talks about higher density commercial corridors. It specifically talks about University Avenue and areas around there. That makes sense because that already has a lot of building in there and they've been trying to scale up the density. And I understand that. No one here doesn't want something built over there because it's his right. It's his right, anybody's right to be able to build on the land that they own. But
Cody, your time is up.
Okay, I'll wrap it up.
Okay, thank you.
We just want something that feels fair and equitable for everyone. And honestly, we just want, as I ended my email here, I want to start and end this process as neighbors. Middleton will be better for it if we do it in that way, where everyone ends up happy about how things turn out, or at least not very upset. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cody. And next one is Jeremy Kulis, and that will be followed by Ann Olson.
Jeremy.
Hi there, I'm sorry. This is actually Katie Kulis and Jeremy Kulis.
Okay.
I just want to touch on a few things because most of our neighbors have touched on most of it. We live at 7112 Twin Sunset. My husband and I bought this home from my parents. This is my childhood home that I grew up in. And we chose to buy this home because of the community that it is in and where we wanted to raise our 3 children. We wanted to be in an area where our neighbors were like family. And I could bring up the water issues again and the property values again, but I know this has already been covered, so I won't do that. But I just would like to stress the fact that this is where we wanted to raise our family. because we wanted to be in this type of a community. And in that, to stress that, our 91-year-old neighbor Grant was this summer watching the developer of that lot try to push mow it, and he got on his tractor mower and drove it down there to try to help assist him to mow that lot. We are a family in this cul-de-sac, and that's how we want it to remain. And we do not want to have to worry about our children's safety when they are out being children, when they are crossing the street to get to the bus stop, when they are out playing with the neighborhood friends. We want to live in this style, and this development would change everything that we chose to live in. Again, there's so many other issues that we could go into, but they were all addressed by my neighbors gratefully, and I will end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. So the next one is Ann Olson.
Hello, this is Ann Olson, 8916 White Coral Way in Hidden Oaks. I submitted a letter. I agree with all of the comments that have been stated so far. And I just wanted to add, reiterate that, the amount of signatures that were gathered in opposition to this represent much more than a majority of both neighborhoods. And that's just people who could be caught on very cold days when people were canvassing for signatures and who were home and who were willing to open their doors during a pandemic. So I think the actual number of neighbors who would have signed those petitions is probably even higher. One concern that I think is specifically related to the fact that the zoning on this lot does not right now prohibit building. No one has said that they are opposed to something being built. People are opposed to this being built. It's not in the character of the neighborhood. The other concern is, aside from R1 being perfectly appropriate to support one or even maybe two small single-family homes, a switch to PDD is very strange in looking at the comprehensive plan. It seems kind of like the Wild West of zoning. The comprehensive plan draft says that PDD has no set standards or specifications, and developers can propose uses or combinations of uses of intensity and density. We don't even know that this would be what the final proposal would be. And I feel that opening this up to PDD would then open the door for perhaps a wilder proposal than what's even being considered now. R1 is what this is. R1 is consistent with everything around this property. And I think that that's the way it should stay.
Just to clarify, Hidden Oaks is zoned PDD, Planned Development District.
Thank you, Abby. Anyone else who may want to speak on this topic at this time?
Abby? Abby, this is Melissa Dahman.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi. I just wanted to add two things. On the site map that we looked at, it does not show where parking is going to go. Is it going to, we heard it might be underground, and then we also heard it was going to maybe be a parking lot. If you figure 2 cars per family, both husband and wife work, that'll be 8 cars just for that immediate proposal. Where are they going to park if they don't have underground? Because there is no off-street parking room. And my other thing is, we live right next door. I'm sorry, Mayor. Dean and Melissa Dahman, 7111 Twin Sunset. We live right next door to Koteshwar. And we actually spoke with him on several occasions, and he was saying that he had a couple contractors come in, and they were indicating to him that much fill would be brought in order to bring his home up so that it would not flood. At that point, then we suggested if he would build toward the front of Twin Sunset, or the front of the curve, which would be right across from Mark and Candle, it's a higher portion of that lot and not as much fill would need to be brought in. And then the next thing you know, this proposal, and nobody saw that coming. Absolutely nobody. But when we were suggesting that he build toward the front of the lot, he said, oh, well, this is just getting more expensive than I can afford. I just don't know what to do. And I already tried to sell the lot. Nobody bought. So I just think he wants to get his money out of it. And none of us can figure this out. We would all be willing to have two homes, but he's just so afraid he's not going to get his money out of the deal. And the single family home with the mother-in-law suite was fine for all of us, but he didn't even ask. I'm done.
Okay,
I'm
thank
out.
you, Melissa. Abby, is there anyone else now, or that's it? Anyone else who may want to speak at this time?
I don't see anyone else
Okay.
that has their hand raised.
Okay, thank you to everyone. So I'm going to close.
Just before you close it, Mayor, I was just going to read the comments that we got for the record. We heard from most of the speakers tonight, from the Dahmans. We received comments from them. James Lundgren at 2647 Sand Pearl, Deborah Murisan, you've heard from her. Ann Olson, you've heard from her. The Phillips, Kyla Schulenberg, I think she spoke. Katie Zing, 8872 Red Barrel Drive. Katie and Jeremy Koulis, you heard from them. Cody Phillips and Jordan Foster, I think we're on that same call. Actually, I think I'm double counting now because we received multiple comments. I just wanted to make sure we had them all for the record.
Okay,
Cindy
thank you, Mark.
Keller.
Yep. And who?
Adam Schoenwater also made a comment.
Well, I recorded I noted the comments as they were spoken. I was just reading the ones that were given to us in an email and included in the packet for the record.
Gotcha.
As well as the petition that of 80 people that was cited.
Okay, so I still the last chance if there's anyone else who wants to speak before we close it. Anything else, Mark? Okay, I'm going to close that part of the public hearing then.
Mark, did you get Joy's?
Okay, so we are going to go to the approval of the minutes for the Plan Commission minutes of December 8th, 2020.
I move approval. This is Paulson.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Paulson, and need a second.
Second, Schaefer.
Second by Commissioner Schaefer. Any question, comments, or changes? Okay, all those in favor of approving the Plan Commission minutes of December 8th, 2020 to say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, so of course, Randy is new, so that's, well, anyway.
That's an abstention.
That will be abstention. So the motion passes with one abstention. So, okay, we are going to go to the item number.
You're going to do the CSM?
Yes, we are going to go to the CSM.
Is there somebody on the call who's here for the CSM? Mayor, maybe we could do it that way.
Is there anyone on the call for the CSM? Is there a Randy here or?
Yes,
Okay.
Bruce Holler here.
Bruce, we're
Okay,
trying to
Bruce
do you a
Holler
favor.
there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Gotta
Okay.
get up early tomorrow.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, so this is item number 6. This is certified survey map for standard imaging. We all know where that is, and it's 3120 Deming Way. So, Mark, you want to
This
Will
is
be
very
a-
straightforward, which is why, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go
Can I
ahead.
go?
Yep.
Very straightforward. They are adjusting the boundary between lots 1 and 2. The purpose would be to increase the size of lot 2 to provide greater flexibility for development. The existing improvements on lot 1 would comply with the zoning regulations for this planned development district.
I would move
Okay.
approval contingent on resolution of engineering staff comments.
Okay.
Slavish, I will second that.
Motion by Commissioner Paulson, second by Commissioner Slavish. Any questions or comments now? Any questions or comments? It seems pretty straightforward. And okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the certified survey map for standard imaging 3120 Deming Way, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are going to go to the item
Thank
number.
you very much.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Okay, we are going to go to item number 1, which was the public hearing and recommendation of the draft City of Milton comprehensive plan. And the staff recommendation is here to hold the public hearing, provide direction to the staff for a final draft, which will be brought for the Plan Commission on 1/26/21. So we did have a lot of input, and I think, I don't know if the staff wants more. Well, go ahead and provide more input, and maybe I will start. And I have just a couple of points, and one of the points, Abby, is about the sidewalks. We know we would want complete sidewalk policy, as we know from last year, and this year it's very contentious. It ends up spending lots of staff time and lots of committee time. And we know what happened last year, and it also puts the folks in the neighborhood against each other. So I think we need to have a plan, the funding plan for this one, and somehow solve this issue once and for all. So there are two issues. One is that people don't have it there, they don't want it, and there isn't really any problem, nobody's asking for it. And then the added is the cost of putting it there. That's one of the big areas too. There are some areas, for example, as Commissioner John Schaefer can tell you, that on the South Avenue and on Milton Street, we don't have those sidewalks for a reason, and you can see because of the hills. And the same way, we don't have a sidewalk along Parmenter Street on the east side, Parmenter and south, again for the same reason, because of the hill. So I don't think that these areas have been looked at in the past. They have been discussed by the city council. And some of these, even when I was in the city council. And so we don't really want to keep hammering on those things, which are really not even possible to put the sidewalks there. And there are sidewalks on the other side of the road. And I was also told that when I was walking around the Columbus Drive, and that has been hashed by the, I don't know, and he has on the meeting too, if he was on the city council at the time. So 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, there was a plan to put the sidewalks along the Columbus Drive, and the neighbors who called me, and it has been looked at, and the city council decided not to put it. And so we don't want to bring things up every 10, 15 or 20 years. We want to somehow find a solution. That's what I would like to see, some uniform solution, which also includes some sort of funding, partly, or because that is a big issue for a lot of people as well. So that's one thing I think.
Mayor, Can I
Yes.
just ask a follow-up question?
Yep, yeah.
What is your proposed, you said you need to see a solution. What is your proposed solution?
I don't know. I guess we should probably put some, have a committee or, I'm open to it. So
Like
come up
the
with
bike, like the pedestrian bike transit committee or the
Uh,
public works committee
yeah, I
that
don't
we already
know.
have?
I think we have maybe I would say some citizens board or something just to address these issues, which I could actually appoint with the city council approval. And, but we got to find a solution that would have a staff and it would have to be, it's it need financing. And so of course we can't ask the taxpayer to pay for it. I don't really know the solutions, but it's a multifaceted
Mr. Mayor, could I speak for a second?
problem. We got to find a way, otherwise if we, yeah, go ahead,
Can I
John.
chime in on this for a second?
You're muted or,
No, I'm
yeah,
not,
go
but
ahead.
I'll try. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yes.
One of my concerns with looking this, if we look at the Middleton Street, we're on a hill and there's 2 feet of dirt between the curb and a 4-foot high wall. And there's no way humanly possible without tearing out a wall that you could ever engineer a sidewalk in there. And so it seems to me that whoever was doing this map and doing this survey was not actually looking at these specific sites, but was just looking at a map. And I suspect there are other sites on here for which they're geographically just incapable of putting a sidewalk. And so that only because of in front of my house, it raised the issue about how many other spots on here are in fact on this map that really can't physically, you'd have to come in and build a 200-foot wall and move the property over 4 feet to get a sidewalk. And I know we're not going to do that. So I don't have an answer either, but I just wanted to say that I think that's a concern I see with this map.
Okay. Any other comments
So,
just on the side?
what is your, what is,
So before we move on, go ahead, Elder Ramsey.
what is your suggestion then, Mr. Mayor? Are you suggesting that we take this map out of the comprehensive plan? I say, I don't, each neighborhood obviously is going to be different. But as we talk about moving forward and whether or not we go with complete streets or how we go about these things, this map is like an inventory. It shows an inventory of where we don't have sidewalks. It isn't a statement map that says that we're going to put sidewalks every place that there isn't. It's just an inventory. And as neighborhoods change and turn over, as they do, there are potentiality of people in neighborhoods that aren't served by sidewalks wanting sidewalks. In one of the over on Mayflower, there's a great number of people over on Mayflower, that neighborhood, that are interested in sidewalks, and again, several that are not. But as time goes on and the character of the neighborhood changes, maybe in 10 years, there'll be 90% of the people that want sidewalks. So this, I don't see this map in here as being a map saying that this is where we don't have sidewalks and we are bound and determined to put them there. This is a map that shows, it's an inventory map basically. So I don't really have a problem with having an inventory map in the comprehensive plan.
Well, if I could comment, there's 2 things. One, it says sidewalk needs, so that implies that these are all needed. I'm not sure they are. And second, it ranks them, which means there's also even a priority of how needy they are. So if your idea of this is an inventory map, let's get rid of the word needs and let's make them all the same color.
And that is the point. If we had gone a little further in this conversation at their bike and ped meeting, that is what the bike and ped committee recommended, that the priority of the sidewalks be taken off and they all be just one color. So it is exactly what I would say then, just a sidewalk inventory. And I am perfectly content with taking the needs word off and rephrasing it to, whatever Abby wants to rephrase it to.
Sidewalk gap.
Yes, sidewalk gap map, however one wants to phrase it. But to your point, John, the bike and ped committee recommended that the list of priority come off and it be one color.
I like that. I think the map is fine. I just think I like as you interpret it better than how this is interpreting it. And this saying here's a bunch of needy projects that we have to get prioritized.
And I don't have a problem with that at all. But I also want to find, since we want the complete streets, I also want to find a long-term solution. And I know what happened last year was very messy and made a lot of people very angry and unhappy. And in this case, if you look at the petition, there's a, I don't know, people all over who are, opposed to it. Then there are people with young children and families, and they would like the sidewalks. So I think, for like on Pinta Court. So I just would like for the city to come up with some long-term good solution. So anyway, so this is only one part I want to address. So it's open for other comments from the other commissioners.
Yeah, I had, go ahead, Jen.
Thank you.
I agree with Commissioner Ramsey. I also want to point out, I do think it's good to characterize it as a gap analysis at this point, and it's identifying locations more like an inventory. I completely agree. I also want us all to keep in mind that as we're designing our city and thinking about how it's laid out, we need to keep in mind all users of the transportation system, and that includes those with needs that may need a sidewalk or need a different type of facility to make their trip. So I agree with Commissioner Ramsey as well that in the future, if a site would get redeveloped, we might look at this map and say, there's a gap there that we can easily require be filled at that point in time. It doesn't say what we would require today or tomorrow, but it does say here are some locations that we need to highly consider in the future. So I also am fine with taking off the priorities located on the map. Thank you.
Excellent, Jennifer. Who's next?
Mayor, if I could go next.
Okay.
I mean, I
Okay.
support everything that's been said thus far.
Okay.
I guess the question would be, is there any merit in us, laying out other considerations that, other issues that could be considered in making those decisions, i.e., significant street trees or, width of the right of way or proximity to schools that, we know that there are other qualifiers that we would consider, before making any definitive decisions about installing new sidewalks in neighborhoods where they don't exist currently.
And absolutely true, especially the trees. I think we talked about the climate, and then, each large tree sequesters a lot of carbon. So, you're right on target, Mike. Okay.
Mike, we could add your comments. I'm just thinking about this, and I'm assuming that the commission's direction is that we still keep the guidelines that we've listed on the bottom right of the map. And we could add another bullet point for consideration, like what you're describing is, does the city have adequate right of way? Would we require removal of trees? Is there an opportunity to narrow the pavement width and add sidewalks without impacting trees? Those kinds of things. And we do have in bullet point number 1 that we would prioritize retrofitting streets to add sidewalks within 1.1 miles of schools where busing is not available.
Yeah, I see that, Abby. Yeah, that'd be fine by me if.
How about the others? If anybody has any objection, please let me know. Otherwise, I will think that you're okay with that. And anyone else would like to speak? Well, let's see about the sidewalks. If you have some other ideas, suggestions how to solve this, I just don't like people putting the neighborhoods against each other, and because and I want people to stay happy and neighborly. And if we could find some good solution that we don't do it year after year, like last year, this year, and I don't want it to be spelled again the same way next year. So I think we have to find a long-term solution and put it away. Anyone else who wants to speak? Okay, anyone else who want to speak on anything on the comprehensive plan?
Mayor, this is
Okay,
Bruce.
Abby, if you, who is this?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Randy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did have just a couple of comments regarding the proposed land use map. Abby, could you pull that up?
Daphne's running the computer
Oh,
tonight.
Daphne, sorry, thank you. Okay. And this alongside with the definitions, I noticed that we've got the this Avenue mixed use district. And in the definition of the mixed use district, there's a couple of things I just want to make sure.
Randy, you're breaking up. Be close to the computer, please. If you're close to the computer, then you'll be just fine.
Okay.
We can hear him.
So I just wanted to make sure that a couple of issues had been discussed or reviewed. One, the Avenue mixed use looks to only allow residential on upper levels, but not on the first floor. And I know that has come up in projects throughout the greater Madison Middleton area and some of the mixed use districts. That's a restriction that as ground floor retail becomes less viable, the residential uses on the first floor do start to make sense. And so I'd like that to be considered. The other item here is that the height is limited to 4 stories. Doesn't talk about the ability to even increase that with conditional use, but adjacent land uses, for instance, in the neighborhood mixed use or multifamily residential, heights of up to 5 stories are allowed. So I just wanted to make sure I understood what the thinking there was.
Thanks for flagging that, Randy. I was actually just talking with a developer about that same exact topic as it pertains to University Avenue. We're expecting to do a University Avenue corridor plan this year, and we have funding to do that. And so I think after this year, we're going to know a lot more about how we expect the University Avenue corridor to redevelop over time. And we are starting to see quite a few vacancies along that stretch. I agree with you that I think requiring mixed use buildings is going to be a real challenge. And the last thing we want to do is require ground floor retail and then just have the space sit empty because it's not viable. So I think that is something that I'd like to take the time to talk through a little bit more with our staff and bring back some options for the Plan Commission to consider.
Abby, I agree, and maybe one way to do it easily is just end that after the phrase neighborhood mixed use category, period, and just end the description there. So that you're not limiting the stories and residential only. I agree with Randy. We've seen that in Fitchburg and Madison. You have a lot of storefronts that are empty on the first floor.
Yeah,
some of which Randy designed.
Times are changing, isn't it? So didn't know what Amazons and
Well, that's just going to jack up the cost of housing to have empty storefronts. They're going to have to make it up by higher residential rents.
Yeah.
So, that's not advantageous to our goal of affordable housing along the transportation corridor.
Yeah, no, I like Kurt's solution too. I think it's cut that last sentence off.
Okay.
And then I had one more question. I just didn't quite understand the difference between the existing residential neighborhood and single family on the mapping. Does the existing pertain to everything that exists right now? Or is there a different color code for that?
Yeah, so we initially had a single family category in the future land use map, as well as a duplex category, and I think even a triplex. But we decided to consolidate those into a new category that would cover low density residential housing essentially. And so Daphne has on the screen here the future land use map, which shows yellow as established neighborhood. So that's a neighborhood that is low density residential. We're not gonna break out what is a single family versus a duplex or a triplex because they're pretty similar in scale. So those are just neighborhoods that have already developed. And then the yellow with the cross-hatched line is future locations for neighborhoods that have not yet developed. And Daphne, do you want to quick show the definition that we came up with for established neighborhood?
Yeah, and then I also wanted to clarify, like the single family residential that you see here, those are only existing outside of the city limits. So it is a paler yellow. It is a little bit difficult to see, but this basically would only exist outside of city limits.
Okay, that helps me. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else?
Is there, Jen, that
Jennifer? Yes.
on page 22 of the agenda, or page 32 of 334. I agree. I think those two colors are very difficult to distinguish between. So if you could figure out a way to represent them a little more clearly, distinctly, that would be great. Thank you.
Jen, just to clarify, the colors, are you talking about the established neighborhood and then the kind of like cream color that's outside the city limits?
Established neighborhood and single family residential. I was having a really hard time distinguishing between the two.
Yeah, those are pretty close. Okay, thank you. We'll make that change.
Thanks.
Would you believe, Jen, there's actually a standard land use coding manual, that color manual that I have, that's what it shows. And this is a perennial complaint because it's hard to see the shading. So,
well, Kurt, you can go and tell them that you know, they could do better, right?
well, this is Vanderwall. They just have a template that they use. So,
Yeah, I know Vanderwall did these maps, so I agree with you. So, okay, anyone else?
just as a final comment, Mayor,
Mhm.
you know, I've worked on and read comprehensive plans all around the state, and most small planning departments hire full-time consultants. So the fact that our planning staff has pulled this all together, in addition to the 1,000 development proposals and emails that they get every day, is nothing short of heroic. So even Mark is included in that, although I know it was mostly Abby, Daphne, and Kelly. So.
Yeah, no, this is commendable. I do have if we go to page 23, I just have some clarification. You have a projections of 4,293 units will be added between 20 and 2035. And when you look at the population between 20 and 2035, that's going up by about 4,000. So if I understand correctly, is that that doesn't seem to make sense. So there's something missing there. So
we tried to clarify this, and I think we might need to add some additional language, but essentially what this is a yield analysis. And we will have more information about how this was calculated in an appendix. But basically what we were trying to show is that we can accommodate our projected population growth through the land that we have available in our growth area and also through redevelopment. So we have the population projections, and those are from CARPC those were prepared as part of the regional plan that CARPC is working on right now. And then separately, we needed to look at the land that we have available for development in our city and make sure that we can accommodate the growth projections for our community. So this is essentially just saying, yes, we can accommodate the growth that we project we will need to be able to accommodate in our city.
And then you get this projected total housing units added beyond city. What is that purpose here?
So there will be a map associated with this in the appendix, and it will show beyond our current city limits, but within the agreed upon growth areas that we have with the town of Springfield primarily. That would be population that could be added in units beyond what it currently exists in the city limits.
Okay, yeah, I think that's may need some, well, okay, so it will be in the appendix, it will be clarifying that. So I think if you could just clarify this so that somebody who's reading, it's understandable, that would be good. Okay, again, I agree with Kurt, and I am sure the other commissioners will say the same. You guys have worked for 5 years and put a lot of work on this, and many people have worked, including Eileen, so Vanderwall, and great job. So you don't need anything now, so you just needed an input, and you're going to make the changes and come up with be ready for 126, right?
Yep. So we heard the discussion, and I think we have an understanding of the changes that the commission wants us to make to the document. And so we will get to work on those over the next couple of weeks and bring back a full draft on the 26th that incorporates the changes that you all have discussed.
Thank you. Okay,
and we should say we mostly agree with most of the comments from Friends of Pheasant Branch. Is that the general sense of the commission? There's a few items they suggested that I wouldn't agree to, but maybe in the interest of time, we just send those to you by email, Abby.
Yeah, we have not had time to thoroughly review the Friends of Pheasant Branch comments yet, but when we looked at them, our staff was pretty much in agreement with the comments that they made. I will be happy to come back on 126 and describe the changes that we've made based on their suggestions and anything that we would recommend against including.
Okay, thanks.
I think mainly they wanted the recognition from when I read that's what, and I have no problem with that part. But the specific changes, I'm sure the staff will look into it and see if they're relevant. So, okay, we move on to the item number 2. This is we already had the public hearing. And this is the recommendation of conditional use permit for Hidden Cave Cidery, 2500 Pleasant View Road, number 1 or 2. I think this is excellent thing. And I would say thank you to Walker, and it's very timely and it's a great project. I need Daphne, you want to say more because you did work on it, so I give you an opportunity to speak.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so this, we presented this about a month ago now, but they're basically adding a tasting room to this like warehouse area. And so because of the zoning, the tasting room is a retail use, and that would require the conditional use. We think that this is a great addition to the neighborhood area. It's really close to Capitol Ice and the industrial area, so people can stop by after work or something to enjoy some cider. And we also did receive a letter of support from Jonathan Engel.
I think this will be great. So, okay, any well, need a motion to approve, so.
Ramsey will move to approve the conditional use permit with the limitation on hours in the tasting room of 11 a.m. to 9 p.m.
This is
Okay.
Maria second.
Okay,
Jen, we have to get you a stronger microphone
motion
so you can
by,
jump in.
Okay, I'll speak louder, thanks.
motion by Elder Ramsey and second by Commissioner Jennifer Murray. Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the conditional use permit for Hidden Cave Cidery 2500 Pleasant View Road number 102 with some of those conditions mentioned by Elder Ramsey, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion is passed unanimously. All right, we are to item number 3. We already had the public hearing. This is the recommendation for sign variances for Adams outdoor advertising. And you got these parcel numbers 255 on Airport Road Business Park and the first edition. And this is Mark Opitz.
Yeah, and Mayor Jason, the applicant, Jason Sari, has a
Okay.
short presentation he would like to give, I believe, if that's okay.
Okay, Jason, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is it possible for me to share my screen or no?
Daphne?
Yeah,
Should be
go ahead,
possible.
Jason. Yeah.
Okay, you're up.
Okay. All right, so my name is Jason Sari, and I am the Director of Real Estate for Adams Outdoor Advertising. And the reason that we are here this evening is because we did remove some signs from Parmenter Street earlier in 2020, in the spring of 2020, to make way for a new development. And
Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt. I had seen that in the package. That's not on the same parcel that's under consideration today, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. These were removed from Parmenter Street, and when we did lose the inventory last year, it did create significant hardship for us in that we have a demand for both for-profit and nonprofit advertisers that we need to meet, and that's why we're here today.
Can you explain to us, did the city require you to take those down?
The city did not require us to remove those. We did have a year-to-year arrangement with the property owner, and when the development came up, they did ask us to remove the signs.
So it's a self-created hardship.
You could describe it as that.
Thanks.
But it is, but the loss of inventory that we have, in a way that the hardship is created by the ordinance, which is why we're here to ask for the variance. So we did remove the inventory, and I do want to point out as part of this presentation that if anyone has thoughts and recommendations, we do have a strong desire to try and get to a point where we have a positive staff recommendation. So if anybody has ideas and suggestions, we're open to hearing whatever those may be, and try and reach an agreement with the city where everybody can win. So we do have 6 static poster faces. We call them posters. They're 12 feet by 25 feet each, and 2 digital poster faces of the same size on Highway 14. And that is a limited amount of inventory for a city the size of Middleton. And on the attached map here, you can see the 3 locations that we have are on the Ann Voss property, on the north end of the Beltline, and also our digital poster on University Avenue. Here's a rendering of our proposed location. We are proposing to landscape this location, and the landscaping that we chose, before I get to that, here's a map of the parcel. The landscaping that we chose is similar to what we did on Highway 14 and also on our digital location that we have in the city of Sun Prairie. When I mentioned suggestions and ideas before, one of the things that we talked about was perhaps the base of this landscaping could be designed with an inlay, for example, to say City of Middleton, for example, or maybe something for the business park. So we're open to suggestions on landscaping, if anybody has any. We also did perform a lighting study, and in that lighting study, we're showing that it will not have an impact on the surrounding property. I think the foot candles at the perimeter of what's shown here is about, I think, 0.13 foot candles. And the sensor that we have on our digital displays, it's going to be the same technology that we have on our Highway 14 digital. And as far as I'm aware, since we did install the Highway 14 digital sign back in 2015, I don't believe we've had any issues that I can think of regarding illumination of that sign. I'd like to talk a little bit about our City of Middleton support. So with the highway, for those of you that weren't involved in the 2015 variance, one of the things that we agreed to with the city is that we would provide a 1 week of coverage for 6 events per year for the city. And here's some examples of what we provided: National Mustard Day, the downtown tree lighting, Jazz Festival, the Middleton Good Neighbor Festival, for example, the Pancake Breakfast Fly-In, and Greenway Station Farmers Market. And as far as I'm aware, the program has worked well for the city. We actually did that program under an agreement as part of approval of that project. And we also, in addition to what we provide for the city, we also have what we call our Collaborate program. And Julie Johnson, our general manager, would like to give some comments on that. So I'll turn it over to Julie.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julie Johnson. I'm the general manager of Adams Outdoor Wisconsin. So thank you for the time tonight. So obviously we are a for-profit company. However, we do donate quite a bit of money every year in value to local area nonprofits in the form of advertising. 5 years ago, we started the AOA Collaborate program. Nonprofits basically have to apply and go through an interview process. And then we choose several to work with throughout the year and create a very large branding ad campaign for them. And it's 100% pro bono. This includes ads that run both on our digital footprint and also our static footprint. One of our first Collaborate partners was Gilda's Club that we worked with back in 2016. And I believe their executive director, Linnea, spoke earlier. As you can see here, there's some of the creative that we did. You may have remembered it from several years ago. And as you hopefully heard from her, her support, that this was a huge campaign that moved awareness for them. And they created a lot of extra support in the community, in the Middleton community even, for cancer patients and families, which was extremely good partnership on both sides. Also, in 2018, we worked with Middleton Outreach Ministry, which I know you guys are all aware of. And I believe Ellen Carlson, who's the executive director, is here to talk about her experience with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few quick words about our experience with Adams. It has been an absolutely tremendous opportunity for us. They have donated hundreds of thousands of free billboard advertising, which we were able to not only use that creative, with the billboards, we were also able to leverage that creative for a lot of other opportunities. The advertising that we've had in the Middleton area has been by far the best advertising and outreach tool that we've been able to have as an organization. I think everyone knows that these days trying to get information out as a business or organization is easy and difficult at the same time, because there's just so much information flowing out there at all times. And having the opportunity to have such clean visuals right here in our community has been a tremendous support to us. And we hear still today, all of the time, comments about these billboards and about the ways it has allowed people to know more about us as an organization. Working with Adams was one of the best opportunities that we've had and continues to be. And I just wanted to thank them. They actually received an Association for Fundraising Professionals Award for all of the work that they've done as a community partner with many organizations throughout the community.
Thank you, Alan. Excellent posters. Look great. Okay, who is next?
So
okay, Julie, yeah, go ahead.
Yep, back to me. Thank you, Mayor. In addition to these two, we've partnered with several other local area nonprofits, including those businesses that reside in Middleton or serve the Middleton area. And these are multiple different categories, from kids, mental health, cancer, domestic abuse, special services, and even pet rescue. The list just goes on and on. And this program is truly the heartbeat of what our organization does and what we're most proud of, because the results it truly gives to both our paid clients and our nonprofit clients. We're all working together to educate and inform our communities. So in addition to the nonprofits that we work with, we also have a plethora of Middleton businesses that are paying for our services and use our billboards in the community. TDS, Greenway Station, Mounds, Frank Beverage. It's a wide assortment of clients that really value the inventory that we have in the Middleton area. And I believe you have some of those letters of support that were mentioned earlier this evening. And then finally, we do have sort of a hybrid program, which was kind of cool this last year, because 2020 was full of lots of challenges, and one of which was having to have virtual high school graduations, which obviously Middleton had to do this year. And so what we did is we worked with the Middleton Crossmain School District, and we're able to place every approved senior on our digital poster on Highway 14. It was definitely quite a lot of work on the back end, but we really wanted to highlight their achievements and collaborate with the district on this. And there was quite a bit of work, but we totally pulled it off, and we were really happy to do it. And in addition to these digital boards that we hope that you saw running in the spring, we also did some static posters that were posted in the Middleton area that just had an overall congratulations to the class of 2020. So we were happy to do that. And I know there was a ton of positive response from this. And I believe that Perry Hibner is with us to kind of talk about that just a tiny bit more.
And Julie, thank you. Thanks everybody for having us. Yeah, no, Adams was a great partner with us last year. As you know, we weren't able to have our usual graduation ceremony. We weren't able to have a lot of the usual things for our seniors. So to be able to have that digital billboard running every 80 seconds with an image of a senior from either Clark Street Community School or Middleton High School over the course of a month, I know was very well received by our families. And Julie doesn't know this yet, but I'm hoping we can do the same thing again this year, because quite frankly, with the fact that we haven't been able to have kids in school for much of the year, I think that'll be a nice touch again this year. And the static poster that was on University Avenue just east of Chalmers was also very well received. So again, I heard nothing but positive comments from the work they did. And they were a great partner and a great asset to our community. So it's my pleasure to be able to speak on their behalf tonight.
Thank you, Perry. Okay.
Just one last comment. This is the last slide. And we did want to offer up as part of this approval, you know, for the project on Highway 14, we did 6 events, each for a week per year. We would like to commit a $20,000 annual commitment to the city as part of this project.
Thank you.
And that is all.
Okay. Well, I can say a few words. Jason, in 2014, when you asked for that electronic board, I was on the city council. I know the city council wasn't very excited to begin with. I voted for it, and I'm sure that it has been very successful. And, you know, you have done a great job working with the nonprofits, as they have testified here now, and in the literature which you have provided as well. But, you know, I think if you were to work with the staff and come up with something agreeable to you and staff and everyone, that would be great from my viewpoint. But I'm going to open it up for the rest of the Plan Commission. So it's open now.
I have a question, Jason and Julie, and
yeah, go ahead.
We really do appreciate all the work you do for charities and for Middleton, and we appreciate that. That's obviously irrelevant to the granting of a variance, which requires a finding of unnecessary hardship due to the unique physical conditions of the property. If you could specify what are the unique physical conditions of the property that prohibit you from complying with the Chapter 22 of the Middleton Ordinance, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I think in reviewing the city's ordinances, as it pertains to unique physical properties, that's something that we weren't prepared to discuss this evening. What we, in our reading of the ordinances, were that because we're asking for a use variance, the use variance criteria, I believe in Chapter 10, deals with whether or not what we're asking for is consistent with the characteristics of the approved uses for the property. And to that note, I believe the SIP for the property does allow for any uses on the property that are allowed under the city's industrial zoning district regulations. So I guess.
So this is both a use variance and a area variance. If it's a use variance, why is it before the Plan Commission and not the Zoning Hearing Board? That's what I'm aware of the fact that our ordinance might not be the most modern because it's unclear whether Chapter 22 is a zoning ordinance under the meaning of that term in the statutes. But what's before us is really height and other issues, not the use variance. Is that correct, Mark?
Daphne, if you could display the hearing notice, please. That would be, I think, most helpful.
Jason, could you stop sharing your screen?
Sure.
So Chapter 10 was not raised in the application that we received. They were requesting a variance from the sign ordinance. And when I reviewed the sign ordinance, the 6 bullets, I guess it is, those are the sections of the sign ordinance from which they need a variance because of the.
It sounds like actually, Jason, you do not need a use variance because it's permitted use in the SIP or the GIP for this parcel.
Well, the SIP, as you can see in the second paragraph, the GIP governs this parcel. It's the original Bruce Company property that Gene spoke about. And the GIP states that signs shall be permitted in compliance with Chapter 22 of the Middleton Sign Code. And that's what caused me to turn to the sign code and identify the sections that the proposed off-premise sign, ground-mounted sign does not currently comply with as proposed. And so that's how I listed that's why you see 6 bullets here. Those are the sections of the 10, 11-year-old sign code that is not, that it does not comply with it. So I listed those, and that's what the variance is.
But the main issue is the height and the size, because if this were just a ground mounted sign for a business, that's different, right? That's the issue before us. The variance is for the height and the size.
Well, and there's the characters, the color, all the second from the bottom, there's other things too. We allow off-premise signs, we prohibit off-premise signs except for on a very limited basis as expressly listed in the sign ordinance. So the other businesses in Middleton that they cited that have off-premise signs, they normally wouldn't be allowed off-premise signs by our sign code. And so we allow sandwich boards, things like that, specifically as identified in the sign code under the terms of that section, but not to have a business have an off-premise sign. That's how we regulate. We regulate off-premise signs that businesses can't put up signs all over the city.
So a variance is evaluated under the standard, not just, let's try to find something that works and fits the character. You have to prove a hardship, right? I'm still curious what the hardship is.
So the hardship that we have, it isn't a self-created hardship in that we did suffer a significant loss of inventory last year. 6 poster faces at one time was pretty devastating to our business.
So suppose a property owner loses a property in one part of the town. How is that a hardship for a different part of the town?
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
If I own 2 parcels, one on the west side of town and one on the east side, and my house burns down on the east side, how is that a hardship that I should get a variance on the west side of town?
I guess how I would answer that is it in a lot of respects we're a little bit different than a property owner that has a business. We don't own the properties where our signs are located, so we don't own the real estate. We, by virtue of how our business operates, we are tenants. So I would equate it to, for example, a coffee shop or a donut shop. If there's only one donut shop or 2 donut shops in town, and one loses a lease, and new donut shops aren't allowed to be erected, we really don't have a choice but to ask for a variance. I should point out, we're not opposed at all to a restrictive ordinance or even what's called a cap and replace ordinance that allows the number of signs, but allows off-premise signs to be erected, but limits that number to a certain amount. We are really such a unique kind of a business. Most of the time when we build anything new nowadays, it's because we're striking some sort of a deal, for lack of a better term. In some of the surrounding communities in the last 10 years, where we've erected some digital signs, for example, Sun Prairie, they enacted a cap and replace ordinance in 2013 when we built our sign by Prairie Lakes. Waunakee, a few years ago, granted us a variance to put up a digital sign on an existing location. DeForest changed their ordinance, which was prior to that was similar to Middleton's. It didn't allow new construction, but they did change the ordinance to allow very limited new construction. So in a lot of respects, what we're asking for here is not something out of the ordinary. It's just that the way ordinances regulate our type of signage, where we have to ask for these special exceptions, as opposed to a permit over the counter.
The sign on Highway 14 to which Jason is referring, there used to be 3 static signs that were positioned along Highway 14 that were replaced with the digital sign that he described. And so, but that was in the same location as the previous signs. So in that case, I believe our staff recommendation also was not to grant the variance, and ultimately the Plan Commission chose to grant it, and I didn't do the research on what the terms of that were. But as he mentioned, there was a agreement with the city on the some amount of time or
I remember
whatever
that
the-
case, yeah.
Yeah, but in that case, there were 3 signs that were replaced with this one digital sign, which I agree has been an attractive, it's certainly, we have no complaints about lighting or anything like that, as Jason mentioned. In this case, the 3 that were lost, the 6 faces, were in a different part of the city. And I think they were because of development on that parcel. So my guess is there was an option with the developer to, your lease didn't preclude the, you lost your lease because of the development proposal. I will say that the ordinance, I gave you a memo in your packet that I updated today that lists as background the purpose and intent of the sign code as well as the variance process. So that is in your packet. And then my updated recommendation is on the last page. I did run this language by our city attorney to see if and he concurred with it 100%. So that is the basis. That is the basis for the staff recommendation.
And Mark?
Yeah.
You're not the attorney, I'm sorry.
Right.
Do we need to make findings on the record by affirmative vote for or against granting a variance relative to the hardship, or how does that work? Because I'm not necessarily against this or negotiating with the city, Jason, but I'm supposed to find a hardship to approve this variance. I don't see the hardship. I don't know what we would state on the record is the hardship that warrants the variance.
If you look at the top on what's on your screen under letter C, that is what our ordinance states as the course of action for granting a variance. Following the hearing, the Plan Commission shall consider the effects of the proposed sign upon the health, safety, welfare of the citizens of Middleton and the residents of the immediate neighborhood and the entity requesting the variance. Should the Plan Commission find all the conditions satisfactorily met.
What conditions?
It's
Yeah,
not,
go ahead.
I mean, it's.
Because that language sounds like the conditional use statutes that have changed, which is if you meet the conditions, you shall grant the permit.
Right. And that's why I put the ordinance in your packet, the part that under letter B, that in my view, there weren't any conditions in there that just described the procedure. So that I thought was irrelevant, but I could provide that as well too. The procedure for scheduling the hearing and providing notice, I should say.
So what are the conditions in subparagraph C? I don't understand
There
what to
aren't
do
any
here.
listed there, but the ordinance at the top, the purpose and intent has language, but I do not see a reference to conditions specifically from C to, let me look at the full ordinance again, but if you want, I can run that by the city attorney.
I would humbly suggest next time we have a complex variance request that we get a memo from the city attorney outlining the basis for our decisions. Because most of us who know zoning, we hear the word variance, we think of the 2 requirements, which is unnecessary hardship unique to the conditions of the property. Neither of which seem to be met in this case. But then we see in our ordinance, it says, if the conditions are satisfactorily met, it shall grant the permit. But we're not granting a permit, we're asked to grant a variance. What is the permit we are granting? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to beat up Mark, it's just our sign ordinance is complex.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to, it sounds like you would like more information from our city attorney. I'm happy to engage Matt in that conversation again.
But should we
Can I ask
defer it for
Jason?
now then?
Jason, would you be willing to have or probably your attorney, have a discussion with our city attorney about what's the standards for review and what are the negotiations involved? Because you're
certainly.
Okay, so that's probably the best way to go.
May I make a comment here?
Go ahead.
It seems to me that since this is really based on the GIP, that it isn't as much a variance to the sign code as it is maybe a revision to the GIP is necessary. And I guess if we're going to send that to the city attorney, have the city attorney review that as well.
Well, in my view, it's clearly, the GIP clearly has language saying you will adhere to the chapter 22. So that was cut and dry.
I agree with I agree with that. I agree totally that that's how the GIP reads. But is there a process to amend the GIP?
Well, yes, of course. That would be a GIP amendment if there's text that is that is to be changed. If the applicant, if the property owner wishes to have the GIP amended to depart from what it states in terms of the reference to the sign code, then I guess that would be a GIP amendment.
If the applicant is amenable to it, because I'm not an attorney, but I'm aware of the fact that Wisconsin case law is filled with zoning cases about signs, some of which are from your company itself. This is a very complex area outside of our scope of expertise. If you're okay with it, can we defer it and ask that there be a meeting with the legal counsels and then brought back to us in 2 weeks?
I think we can do that.
I think that's probably the best way to go.
That would be my motion then, to defer consideration until the next meeting.
Okay, I go ahead and second it. So,
Mrs. Murray, I will be abstaining.
okay, all right, and Jennifer will be abstaining. Any other further questions or comments?
No, Mayor,
from
this
the
is
commissioner?
Mike Slavish. Just a couple of additional comments. Legality
Go
aside,
ahead.
I think to the recommendation, I would support that with having, our attorney review that with Adam's attorney as well. But if you look at on page 208, item C, in terms of planning commission considering a variance, it said it would consider the effects of a proposed sign upon the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Middleton. And I guess I would at least think it's worth discussion that, we have a number of not-for-profits here that have expressed support for this sign. It does provide visibility to them that but for this sign and Adam's willingness to provide it, they probably wouldn't be able to afford to do that. Same thing applies. Not that the city of Middleton couldn't afford to do that, but if there is real benefit, now we understand Adams is a for-profit company, but there are benefits to certainly the not-for-profit component, but then our businesses here as well. So I think, and I guess this would go to you, Jason, and is there a way that you can break down for us more definitively, how many hours, how many days are really set aside for not-for-profits, for the city of Middleton, and then arguably for-profit businesses that advertise on your signs that are housed in the city of Middleton as well, that, ultimately benefit. They make a choice to advertise with you because they feel it is to their business's benefit as well. So, I believe there's an argument here that, we at least need to think about in terms of the benefit it provides to the residents, the not-for-profit and the for-profit businesses that reside in our city as well.
I think that's a great point, Mike. I appreciate that. Anyone else?
I would suggest perhaps that if there's going to be a discussion of new construction of billboards, that the city enter into a discussion with Adams regarding a more comprehensive view of it. I think Jason had suggested maybe looking at some overall regulations or some cap and trade or some other ideas that could be considered. So I think it's just if we're gonna open up the discussion for new construction, I think we ought to have a longer term plan in place.
I agree, Randy. That's a great idea. let's have a plan in place rather than just one. And yeah, it should be part of the larger picture, not just one. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so the motion is to defer and then consider all the comments raised here.
Is the
All those in
purpose,
favor-
I'm just trying to understand the motion, Mayor. Is the motion is to defer to the next meeting so that staff and the applicant can confer with the city, or so that staff can confer with the city attorney? Is that?
So that staff and applicant can confer with.
We don't typically have private sector directly conferring with our city attorney. That's why I wanted to understand what your motion was. So.
Yeah,
So
okay,
that staff
yeah.
can confer with the city attorney.
And
And I can work with Jason on that, obviously.
And just, verbally, we encourage Jason and their attorney to reach out to our attorney.
Sure, we can do that.
We want to get it right, but we want to do it.
I understand, but I'm going to respectfully push back a little bit. We do not encourage, unless through staff oversight, communications between the private sector and our city staff attorney.
Sure.
So I just want that to be clear. So Abby, do you have anything to add to that?
No, the only examples is where we're collaborating on like a city developer agreement or something along those lines.
Right.
I think, yeah,
It
we
needs to
just,
be through staff.
yeah, I agree, Mark.
Okay, I just want to make that clear. So I would recommend that not be part of your motion.
So it's going to cost some money to in terms of attorney fees. Who is, where is that money going to come from? And how much?
The city attorney is available on I never know the terminology. Is the term a retainer or there's a flat? Abby probably can answer that better than I can.
Would this be part of the retainer or is it?
I think this probably would fall under our retainer. We have a legal review meeting scheduled with them for tomorrow, so we could just add this as one of several topics that we're going to discuss.
Okay, so let's talk about it tomorrow then.
And the other question is, did you specifically intend for this to be at your next meeting? I am unavailable for that meeting for what it's worth. It doesn't mean you can't discuss it and act on it, but I will be unavailable. So I just want to, maybe if you could say to be postponed.
Just to defer.
To be postponed to a future meeting.
Yeah, defer consideration, yeah.
Okay, further questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? There's a one abstention and the motion passed. We are on to item number 4. We had a public hearing and this is the recommendation for rezoning from R1 single family to planned development district. General implementation plan GIP Koteshwar Katukam 7103 Twin Sunset Road. Mark, so we already had a hearing. We had a lot of input. So where do you want to go now? So
I think it would be most helpful if we have an updated staff report that, let me see, I had some notes on it. I got to go back to that now. So this afternoon, we received from the applicant a revised site plan. And he had been considering this actually last fall. There's that one that was included in the packet, and then this one needs to be shrunk down. And so we had an updated staff recommendation, which is in your packet that I replaced the previous planning staff report. And so and the applicant's present. So you may wish to ask the applicant to speak to his application for rezoning and the revised site plan. That might be a good place to start.
okay, so
Assuming he's still on
is
the
there
line.
someone from the applicant Koteshwar or
Yeah,
somebody?
I am still on the call. Yeah.
Okay, so well, okay, so you want to speak?
Yeah, I mean, well, I first of all thank you for doing this, and my goal is actually um, I'm not building multi-families like, 32 or anything, just couple trying to share my land so other families can live. And I'm not trying to own and rent and make money. Potentially I can sell the other half, just keep one. I know all my neighbors says no to this. I don't know what to do, but whatever city rules, regulations, I'll follow to build 2 duplexes if you guys approve. Um, so as part of the, Mike called me this morning, actually. I didn't know that the road is actually owned by Town of Middleton. So again, not a regular developer, I don't know. And I don't know how much it's going to cost to go through them and what they're going to approve. Raising, construction cost is really adding me a lot of stress to build even single family home. Because anyway, so I can change the plan to represent whatever I gave within the site plan dimensions within this new plan. The plan showing is actually facing, one is on the Evergreen side, one is on the Twin Sunset side. So if you guys think this is a better option, then I can add this plan. Whatever city can suggest us. So, yeah.
So and I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce the origin of this plan more fully. This morning, as I was preparing for the meeting, reviewing my staff report, I actually was talking with our city engineer, and I was asking him a question about stormwater, and we were talking about the site and just wanting to make sure that he didn't have any concerns with driveways. And we were looking at a map together, and that's when I realized that the annexation from several years ago did not go to the center line of the road like annexations usually do. When we receive an annexation petition, they usually go to the center line of a road, and in this case, it didn't. And so at that point, I realized that driveway access to a road that's not owned by the city, or at least partially owned by the city, was likely to be a concern. So I reviewed the town ordinance, which is referenced in the letter that we received late this afternoon. And so, and I was looking at the site plan further, and I realized having the 2 driveways to the north might cause some concern, and was thinking about the design of it. And I thought, well, actually, we had considered some initial concepts earlier that broke up the appearance of the duplex so that you have one driveway going north, one going east. And so that is what led to the submittal of this revised drawing, which was already in existence before. So, but then when he submitted this, I realized it didn't have some of the site data. It didn't have dimensions on it that match the site data that is in the GIP. And that's why at the 11th hour, you got the revised staff recommendation saying that there might be a need to defer. But since we had the hearing scheduled, it was obviously important to have the hearing and give the public the opportunity to comment on the project, on the rezoning request. So that is the full history. I'm sorry I didn't explain that a little better before turning it over to the applicant, giving him an opportunity to speak. I did want to also add that a PDD, every PDD we have in the city, if when a site is rezoned from whatever R1 or B1 to planned development district, the zoning regulations are unique to that PDD. So as Abby noted earlier, Hidden Oaks is zoned PDD, and there's a specific general implementation plan and specific implementation plan that guides land uses in Hidden Oaks, just like there are in many other parts of the city. Whispering Pines up on top of the hill is a PDD. We have the Airport Road Business Park, that whole, the whole land, the airport itself is a PDD, Middleton Hills. So we have a couple dozen PDDs, more than a couple dozen around the city, and each have their own zoning regulations. And PDDs give the city more leverage to control how development occurs. So we can specifically say, this is where the stormwater will be. These are the features of the stormwater plan. This is what the setbacks are going to be on this site. And you can't just make changes that are, one of the speakers earlier stated a concern that if this is rezoned to PDD, that's then a blank slate to do whatever. No, it has to follow the zoning regulations that are specified in the PDD, complying with the setbacks, a maximum impervious surface area, building heights, uses, all those things are spelled out in the PDD. The reason why the staff recommendation was that we were receptive to this rezoning request is because we do, in our comprehensive plan that's adopted and the one that we are preparing, that was the hearing tonight on that one, we feel that it is consistent with our various objectives in the adopted and the proposed comprehensive plan. The adopted one is the one that governs. This site is actually located less than a quarter of a mile away from a bus stop. It's not half a mile away, it's a quarter of a mile. The bus service is limited, as was noted, to peak hour weekday service. And our trail, there's the trail nearby and sidewalks close by, not on Twin Sunset, of course. So the revised staff recommendation is in your packet. I don't need to review it now. I want to make sure the Plan Commission has a chance to obviously talk about this and not just me. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so let's hear from the Plan Commission members. We heard a lot from the neighborhood. From what I see is that one of the big issues was the stormwater, other was the traffic, and third was the size of the building. I don't think it was proposed as a 3-story, but that was mentioned in a lot of those comments. And the other was the lower of the property values. And I remember at one time, one of the proposal was to have that even if they're duplexes, but it will look like a single family home. I don't know if that's still, or that could be worked out later. One of the other proposal was a single family home on one and duplex on the other. So I don't really know where are we now, but I will open up for the Plan Commission.
Mayor?
To open, yes, to discuss, yes. Okay, Kurt.
I don't want to jump ahead unless someone else had comments, but I made the motion the last time. And so just for the applicant and the neighbor's benefit, one of the reasons why we came to this concept was that under the current zoning, which is R1, the applicant could split into 2 lots, and each of those houses could have an accessory dwelling. That is in essence 4 units on the parcel. The R1 zoning height limit currently is 3 stories or 35 feet. So there's nothing about this proposal that exceeds the height limit of the existing R1 zoning. The applicant could actually split the current parcel into 2 R1 parcels and build 2 pretty large houses within the building envelope of those houses. So the argument we made, just to explain to the neighbors, which unfortunately I do not see represented in this GIP at all, and I think it's a pretty bad site plan on both proposals, is the idea that with perhaps 1 driveway, you could have, as the mayor said, we wanted a building that would be designed to look like from the outside a single family home, but internally really represents 2 units. So it wouldn't have to be a primary unit and a mother-in-law suite, which is also called an accessory unit, but it could be 2 smaller units in the same structure, so it looks like single family. A site plan that envisions 4 driveways is really far removed from that concept. And so, I think what we have here is not at all, for me, reflective of the motion I proposed to allow him to do that.
So do you want him to work with the staff and come up with something which was originally proposed?
Well, if I could make a comment.
Yes, so go ahead.
You made a motion last time and it was to just split it into 2 R1s, and it got voted down on that. But my feeling is while this may fit the city's plan, et cetera, this is an issue driven by one individual for that individual's property. at the expense of what seems to be over 80 people and the entirety of the neighborhood. So I see absolutely no compelling reason to be driven, whether it fits the issue or not. I don't think the city's gaining some big, great thing from this. So this really, I view this as one developer trying to get the best use and money out of their land at the expense of the neighborhood. And so I'm hearing what you're saying, Kurt. I would see this as two R1s and build what you can on an R1. And I don't think we can stand in a way, but I just, this is where we keep retwisting this to try to squeeze as much stuff in this property. And it's very clear. I've been to this neighborhood, driven it about 4 times now, that this is not a transitional neighborhood. It's a little cloistered little cul-de-sac, and you really, it's all stands all alone. So I'm personally going to not support this rezoning for this thing. I think there are other options that could work better.
To speak to what Kurt said, what we have before us, like Kurt said, has in no way is representative of what I remember discussing and looking at the different pictures of proposed architecture. But what I would like to say to the neighbors and to the point of 2 R1s, and you can go 35 feet and 3 stories. With a PDD, there is more opportunity for the city to have a role in saying that, no, this isn't going to be a 3-story building. We're not going to give you a GIP for a 3-story building. It actually is going this route is actually more beneficial. It limits, it certainly, one of the things that we heard consistently from just about everyone that talked was they were not in favor of a 3-story building. Totally get that. But if we keep these at 2 R1, there could be a 3-story building put in there then.
Jennifer, you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, and that's why I voted last time on the recommendation we had. And I do agree in terms of what we're seeing in front of us today. I'm more confused in terms of what the proposal would look like now. And I feel like the applicant hasn't progressed far enough along in the process for us to really evaluate anything in front of us today. I don't think what's on the screen right now is what we would be voting on or making a decision about in terms of the rezoning. So I would like to see that before we would make any further decisions.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Randy?
I mean, Mark,
okay, go ahead.
No, Mark, if you can open the other plan, because this is the first one I sent, and the other plan sent as part of that site. I gave all the what do you call the site dimensions. So this plan is only for GIP. When I actually go with the SIP, I will hire an architect. As you guys approved in the concept plan, I'm going to make this plan as like single family residence, having just look like one house. As you guys all approved, it is going to be the same way. But it's, yeah, I mean, whatever the plan you guys want to approve, I will go with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead, Randy.
I think one of the problems that we have right now is our applicant understandably is trying to limit the financial exposure early on in the decision-making process. But we need more information and more details to make a good decision on it. And I think this drawing that's in front of us, I think I don't think that this works, and I don't think the second drawing works. I mean, they just don't even represent the same size footprints. It's really unclear, how this would work. I don't know if the Plan Commission and the applicant have thought about just subdividing it into 2 lots and doing a R1 and an R2 site. Maybe the R1 would be on the northern portion, the R2 on the southern portion, but that would allow the applicant to move forward without providing all the plans necessary.
Except Randy, the R2, there would not be enough square footage to make an R1 and an R2 lot.
Actually, that's incorrect, Commissioner Paulson. It's an 18,000 square foot lot, so you could, a rezoning would be required for the southern lot, but R2 requires at least 10,000 square feet and R1 is 7,200. So that would be 17,200 square feet, leaving a little bit of a cushion for where the lot line is. But it would require still a rezoning and of course the subdivision, the land division. I also wanted to note that the motion that was approved, which is in your packet from last fall, of course, is not binding, the concept review, but the motion was moved by Paulson, seconded by Slavich to endorse the concept of allowing a subdivision of 2 lots with up to 1 duplex or 2 units on each lot. So that was the direction that was given, again, not binding, but it sounds like we didn't capture, we meaning staff working with the applicant, didn't capture enough of the flavor of the discussion from last fall, and happy to work with them some more.
Well, and so the issue is, and Randy knows this because he's an architect, there are lots of really high quality designs out there to make a 2 or 3 or even a 4 unit building look exterior and function like a single family so that it can fit within the character of the neighborhood. And that's actually what we're encouraging in our comprehensive plan, which is if you're going to do anything that's just different from the standard single family, you want to use high quality design so it doesn't look like the duplexes made in the 60s and 70s, which we've all seen, which are the kind of boxy side by sides. And I understand why the neighbors are upset if that's what they think they're going to see. And that's what the initial site plan seemed to suggest, because you didn't have the building dimensions to show that it's just, what is it, 80 feet wide and looks no more than 40 feet in depth. It's I don't see the dimensions there, but you know, it looks like a big ranch house turned on its side, which again, you can do with a shared driveway and just 2 separate garages on the unit. Okay.
So Mike, you want to provide your input, or I think the way I see that the applicant has to work with the staff and come up with more details for us to approve, right?
Yeah, I'd support what's been, you know, voiced as concerns by the other commissioners, Mayor.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so Kurt and Mike, so what do you want to go with now?
So I guess it's a motion to defer, but again, we'll have to consider a GIP amendment, a GIP rezoning request is specific to a kind of site plan and building envelope and circulation and usage as described in the text and the drawing that was submitted. So the question will be whether we have to do another public hearing again as to how similar it is. And that's really a determination for staff once they see the application.
So what do you think of Randy's thought there? I mean, that could still have a mother-in-law's unit there where there's a single family and the other one duplex.
But depending on the design, I think it would raise the same concerns with the neighborhood about spot zoning to an R2. So the advantage, at least of a PDD, is a coherent development plan for a whole parcel that could include stormwater, design, tree maintenance.
See, the problem is, honestly, the prices are going up and up and up, every, right now, even to run water sewer the other side, when I talked to PW, Public Works, it said $60,000 right there. So, right, $150,000 I paying taxes for the past 3 years trying to build simple, small home, but it's costing me more and more. And which is not affordable to build a simple single family home there. And the owners, my neighbors, I'm really sorry how they reacted, but unfortunately they're not in my shoe. They don't understand the cost. If they sell it, I sold my house and moved into an apartment, living 3 years in my apartment right now. And I couldn't afford to buy, even I wanted to sell this house too, it's on the market. I mean, this lot too, it's on the market. But unfortunately, if you build only duplexes, it is affordable. I'm ready to, sell those two for another 2 individuals who can live. It's not like making money on it, I don't know. And some owners are saying, my neighbors are saying that I'm, underground garage. I don't know where that come from. I don't know, 3-story building. I don't know where that come from. I'm kind of like really frustrated actually.
So would you want to work with the staff and come up with something which Plan Commission could look at? Is that what Mark and Abby are proposing?
I love to, yeah.
Yeah, I said we'd be happy to work with him further. I am delighted to do that if you want me to, if that's what I'll do.
Please, yeah.
Okay, so then Kurt, your motion is to defer?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay, so somebody else want to do a second?
Yeah, I'll second that, Mayor, since we were involved with the
Okay,
original
so
motion.
the motion is made by Commissioner Paulson, second by Commissioner Slavish.
I think Jen's trying to talk.
Good question.
Okay, Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, so my presumption at this point is that those driveways on Evergreen would not be part of the proposal, or is that, I mean, maybe that's going too far at this point, but we would, as the Plan Commission, we wouldn't have any approval authority over driveways accessing off Evergreen, correct, Mark or Abby?
Off of Twin Sunset.
Oh, sorry.
Evergreen's a city road, right?
Yes, that one portion adjoining this lot is city.
Okay.
So if I
and the
simply
lots to the west.
just if I ask, okay, if I just run a road, I mean the driveway from the Evergreen, just one driveway, combining all these 2 units, is that doable still without going through town of Middleton?
You had that concept. While we were talking, I went back and looked at the concepts that were considered last August or September, whenever it was. And you had a concept showing one driveway coming off of Evergreen. With 4 units off of it. But
we can just go with the 2. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So the Plan Commission's feedback then was to, instead of having 6 units or 4 units together, they suggested the duplex route. Whether that's served by one driveway, I mean, I think from a water and sewer standpoint, we require separate laterals from the street. So, that's a utility policy that we have. So
for each parcel.
For each parcel, right. Thank you.
Not for each unit.
Well, but if there's going to be, if each unit will separately be owner occupied, if that's ever up in the cards.
Not possible without a separate lot.
Correct, but they would need to, this would be the time to construct it that way, because we would require a separate water service to each unit from the street. So that's why a lot of duplexes around town, the 60s and 70s style duplexes, are not 0 lot line, because it's cost prohibitive to retrofit them to have their own water lateral connecting the building to the street. I'm getting into the weeds here, but whether one driveway can serve both parcels, we'll look into that. Otherwise, this idea of a shared driveway serving each parcel, I like that idea, as long as we have the separate, the idea of having it look like a single family house with separate driveway, separate garages, or garages fronting different frontages. That is appealing. So
if you're gonna do a PDD, there's no need to split it into 2 lots. You can have
That's,
No,
The
you need
building
to.
permit, you need to.
That's what I got. Yeah, that's what because of the way water sewer works.
Okay, then each lot may need its own driveway then.
Yeah, I didn't want to split the lot. I just wanted to build just one. I mean, because if there is already water sewer out there, if I can use that water sewer lateral for the other side, then that even affordable.
Let me brainstorm that again with, and maybe Daphne, you worked on this last fall too. I don't know if you got into that level of detail, or Abby, but I'm happy to talk with our public works staff tomorrow or at a future time to get a better understanding of exactly what the whether that dictated the creation of separate lots, and if that, we can look into that. Since you're deferring, we've got time to do that. You still have another agenda item, so.
Those are issues you can work on with the developer.
Right.
Okay, all right. The motion is to defer and for the developer to work with the staff. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are on to the last item for today, and that is concept review for 6720 Frank Lloyd Wright LLC multifamily development 6720 Frank Lloyd Wright Avenue. So, Abby.
Thank you. This is an application for a concept review for a 34-unit multifamily building within the Middleton Hills development. And I just want to reiterate that this is concept review. And so what that means from the city's zoning ordinance is an application for concept review once the planning staff finds that the application is complete and fees have been paid. Then an application shall be reviewed by city staff and shall be placed on a plan commission agenda for concept review. Initial review is review of the project at the concept level, and it's not binding. This is the preferred procedure for one or more iterations of plan commission initial review to occur prior to the introduction of a formal petition for rezoning. I mentioned in my staff comments that this project would most certainly require a rezoning application. Middleton Hills, as mentioned previously, is zoned Plan Development District General Implementation Plan. It is a master planned community, and there would need to be a rezoning application eventually. This is a concept level. Whenever the required petition is introduced, the normal rezoning procedure occurs, including notice and hearing before the Plan Commission. We received 26 comments, and those were all included in the packet for rezoning. And there were several detailed questions included in some of those comments that we received, including asking questions like whether there has been a traffic study, how stormwater is going to be managed, how utilities will tie in, what is the architecture and the building massing going to look like. I want to mention that none of these details have been worked out, and that is intentional. The idea of concept review is for the plan commissioners and the neighborhood to have an opportunity to provide input and feedback before the developer gets too far along in developing plans to make any substantive modifications at that point. Our staff recommendation tonight is for feedback to the applicant, a recommendation that the applicant hold a neighborhood meeting. We would recommend a referral to Conservancy Lands Commission due to proximity to the pond. And also I had spoken with Alderwoman Susan West, and she suggested that the applicant also have an initial informational meeting with the Middleton Hills Architectural Review Committee. Of course, they're not going to have architectural renderings for that committee to review at this point. It would simply be an opportunity to introduce the concept and to get some information from the review committee before the development of the plans. That's all I have. Our recommendation is for the applicant to hold a neighborhood meeting and for feedback and referral to CLC.
Well, I will start and I would say, I want to say thank you to everyone who sent the emails. And I read every one of them. And,
part of it is
and
like
I think it's good that, people express their views right up front so that the applicants
Part
also
of what I'm
know
doing is going, okay,
how
what's this
people
planning
feel
commission
about it.
all about anyways?
And I have also visited the
going,
site
"Holy
and
crap."
there's some people talking here, right?
Kermit, you might want to mute. Thank you.
And I know, this site and I talked to a few people there as well. So I do want to say there are a lot of the big issues raised is, they need to fit the master plan, which Abby said it is going to go to the Milton Hills Master Plan Committee and 34 or whatever units are too big for the lot and the traffic. And I always recommend everyone who comes to the Plan Commission, go and talk to the neighbors, have a neighborhood meeting, as Abby is suggesting too, before we go very far. Anyway, I want to say thank you to everyone for writing, and it's open for the Plan Commission now.
Mayor, the applicants are on the call and they
Okay.
have been waiting patiently and they would like to give a presentation.
All right.
That's Ross Rickers and Drew Madden.
Okay, so Ross or Drew, whoever wants to, go ahead and go with your presentation.
I'll kick us off. Can we give this 5 minutes? Okay, we'll go as quick as possible. Is that an appropriate amount of time?
Yeah, that's fine. It's we are here to help you, so listen
Okay,
to you,
well,
whatever you have to present.
we'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. Just a quick introduction. I'm Ross Rickers, and I'm on the call with Drew Madden, my business partner. And we just wanted to say thank you for letting us present this concept plan. Drew and I, a couple of years ago, purchased the office building at 6720 Frank Lloyd Wright from the Erdman family. And it was almost vacant when we bought it. We really enjoyed working with the community and the businesses in the area to fill up the property. It's 100% occupied now, and we're excited about that. We've been talking for a while about our parking lot in the northeast portion of our lot, and what we should do with it and what we can do with it. As we started thinking more and more about it, we thought about office space and retail space, but given that it's set back, it didn't make as much sense. And we started thinking about apartment buildings and our apartment building. And our first call was to Abby and Mark because, to be frank, Drew and I didn't know who to call. And so we spoke with Abby and Mark, and they suggested that this concept review idea is just as Abby mentioned, it's a great way for people, I guess, like us to get in front of you all and to talk about an idea, and I guess to get the temperature of the city and the temperature of the neighborhoods and see if this is the right direction. We reached out to an architect friend and had him take a look at our lot, and it appears that there's a room for an apartment on our parking lot. We can structure it such that we can, we think, secure the necessary parking we need to have the ratios for both residential and maintaining the parking we need for our office building. But it is just a concept, as Abby mentioned. We don't have renderings. Obviously, anything we build there, we want it to fit and hit the fit and feel of the Frank Lloyd Wright feel and the Middleton Hills neighborhood. And whatever we end up building, we just want to make sure it's done right. And ultimately, we want everyone in Middleton Hills to believe it was a good addition to the community. So we don't know. I hope our concept review was our project narrative was appropriate for you. We didn't know how much information we should provide or not, but this is where we are right now. Drew, maybe you could just talk a bit to the team about Middleton Hills and your involvement.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah,
he lives on Ramsey Road, so close to Kurt, right? Imagine. So go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor and everyone. Abby and Mark specifically, like Ross mentioned, gave us we had a call, and we literally started from scratch because this is my first rodeo in this, and Ross's, other than the building we acquired. And the quick backstory on that: my wife and I moved up to Madison in 2010. We rented a house for a quick minute, and then we bought the first house we saw in Middleton, which was in Middleton Hills, right there on Ramsey Road. Fell in love with the house, but more importantly, fell in love with the community. Living in Chicago, you get kind of used to having your neighbors be like 9 to 12 feet away from you. And that was a little bit of a in Middleton. And honestly, initially a concern, like, oh, well, where's my big yard and where I can mow for an hour and a half? We immediately fell in love with the community, with the tight knit community, with the collegiality. We've never lived in all the cities we've lived in a place that was more neighborly. I didn't know at the time that the term was called new urbanism. I just knew that I liked living there, and it was fun to have a pizza party with your neighbors on a picnic table halfway between each house. We did move forward. I moved up here to help start a company called Nordic Consulting, left there in 2016, started a company called Evergreen Healthcare Partners. Every time we've talked about this street called Evergreen, my ears perk up and I feel like I maybe missed something that our company was supposed to do. But that company started as a company of 4 people. We've grown to 160. And so I called us and said, I want to look for some startup space that could hold between like 4 and 100 people, which is a kind of a weird request, but we zeroed in on this building. It was important to me because the idea of walking to work, biking to work, or as it often happens, driving to work because I'm running late, was a cool thing. And I knew you could walk to get lunch and groceries and that kind of stuff, which very much fit with the intent of the neighborhood. And so currently Evergreen occupies 1/3 of the overall space in this building. And our hopes are to continue to grow as a company and to continue to stay in Middleton. As we talked about an idea of what do you do with this parking lot, and is there a way to utilize it in a fashion beyond just a paved parking lot? That's when Ross and I sort of discussed this as an option. I think first and foremost for me, and I've seen the email reactions. One, I've learned a lot. I think it seemed like the standard advice was to reach out to neighbors that might be impacted by this. If I could do it again, I would have reached out to the entire Middleton Hills community because, and part of that is why I love the community, because it's tight knit, because people care about each other and are close and talk about things. I will, Abby, I know you mentioned like scheduling a meeting. I'd love to work with you to understand what that means, kind of the standard procedures for that, and I'd love to do it. Additionally, would love to provide an email. There was an email sent out with some information about the project. Some of it was accurate and some of it was not accurate. And so, I mainly want to make sure that to my friends and neighbors in the community that they understand what our goals are and what our goals aren't. I told Ross this, I want to do this if it's good for the community of Middleton and Middleton Hills, to be honest. I think it is, and I think it could be. Again, we're still in concept, but the idea of people being able to walk from an apartment to get groceries, to eat at the various restaurants, seems like a part of the new urbanism plan, and certainly fits the urban infill, I think, priorities. But we want to do it right. Like I said, I've been here for 10 years and my wife and I aren't moving as far as we know ever. This is, Middleton and Middleton Hills is now home. And so to me, it has to be something that we seek the community's advice, and we make sure we listen well and hopefully design something that that people can look back on and say, yeah, we think this made the community better. I'm not a traffic study guy. I don't know the first thing about, like, I'm excited to work with this group to figure out what we need to do to check into the things that are concerns, because they're real concerns and I get it. Living on Ramsey, I had similar concerns when there was some building going on in Chickahawk, right? Literally, a snowball or a football away from my backyard. And it was a change management issue for sure. But ultimately where I landed was it also fits the intent of the neighborhood, which is new urbanism, which is you're close to your neighbors. And so want to make sure we respect all parties. Again, Abby and Mark, I'd love to chat with you maybe later this week and understand how we hold a meeting that's a good experience for the people who are interested in attending. But again, overall, I love the neighborhood. We're sort of all in as a family and now as a business owner in Middleton and Middleton Hills, and we want to do what's right for the community.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Thank you, Ross. And I'm going to ask Susan West, is she the elder person for District 6? She would like to say a few words. Susan?
Okay. I'm not only the older person for District 6, but I also serve on the Architectural Review Committee. I've been on it probably 10 or 15, probably about 15 years. And has been said, Milton Hills is a PDD. We have our own zoning documents. What is really important for everyone to understand is we have incredibly detailed architectural standards that have to be met. And they are, every time somebody wants to paint their house a different color outside, they have to get approval. If they change the landscaping in their front yard, they have to get approval. I have had quite a few conversations with the head of the neighborhood association. He's brought up some significant concerns in that the proposed building does not meet the architectural standards in that it does not have a street front. It's on an alley, so that's a big one. It doesn't meet any of the standards for apartment buildings, which need to be more like townhomes. So I would suggest, even before meeting with city staff, come to an architectural review committee meeting and let us go over the architectural standards. The committee is composed, and I have a cat that wants to join us, so please ignore that. The committee is composed of 4 architects, 3 of whom work professionally, and myself. I mainly take care of landscaping things. Okay, Winston, get down. But I think one of the other things that the president of the neighborhood association pointed out to me that you need to be aware of is to get changes in the architectural or any of our covenants requires a 75% positive vote from the whole neighborhood. That's a very hard standard to meet. I just want you to be really aware of that. Some other comments I've gotten is the 3 stories is too tall. I personally would say I have lived in the apartments next to you when I was having my second house built. I would have hated looking out at that close to a building when you had the whole conservancy. So I can understand the residents that are concerned about that. The alley there actually is property for the neighborhood association. So that needs to be figured out in terms of maintenance, use, and so on. Let's see, what are some of the others? But I think mainly what is proposed does not fit the architectural standards at all, other than the 3 stories is allowed. But that lower level of parking does not match at all. And it would need to be prairie, probably a prairie style. I would suggest to go with the rest of the business area. And not just reaching out to the individual homeowners, but definitely to the businesses. And I would say the entire business area, because the increased traffic will affect all the businesses, the lack of parking, because we've historically been able to use that as an overflow parking lot for the restaurants and so on, is another potential concern.
Great. Okay.
Do you have any questions that I could maybe answer?
Yeah, Susan, can I reach out to you directly just to like for the architectural review meeting? I'd love to get that information, learn.
Yes, I'd be glad to work with you on that.
Possible. I think that's part of the concept review that we were looking forward to that type of direction.
Yeah, and you really need to have architectural review before it goes to final approval for the city, definitely.
And Susan, do we need to have architect renderings before that meeting with the architectural review committee?
No, I would say you need to just come talk to us and understand what the actual regulations are. They're in, if you go to the Neighborhood Association website, they're on the website. They're a little difficult, at least for a non-architect like me, to go through. I will say over the years, I have learned a lot about the structure of prairie houses and bands and where windows have to go and all of those little things, but there's some real big ones. I think the street frontage is probably your biggest problem.
That's wonderful. You guys can have three of you can have a wonderful meeting and come up with something which is which we could move forward. So it
And
looks like
I will say we could meet possibly by Zoom. The Architectural Review Committee, at least in the warmer weather, we met outside at the Prairie Cafe.
Great.
Okay. You guys can connect with each other and figure out. It looks like Dan Ramsey and then Kurt Paulson.
Yeah, I have a question. Since this is a concept review, has there been any discussion, any talk, or any thought of any affordable units in this building?
I can address that. We hadn't even gotten that far yet. We were the initial pro formas that we were thinking. We used a software to figure out what the comps were in the area. We looked at all the way down into downtown Middleton and down to the new Stagecoach apartments that was built and over by the Beltline. And we tried to figure out what was renting, and we just used market rates in our pro formas. But that's not to say we're open to that. I don't know much about it, to be honest. Section 42 or other affordable housing strategies or programs, but we're open to it.
More questions, Dan? Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don.
So, yeah, so my comments are going to largely reflect some of the things that I've been hearing in the neighborhood and similar to what Susan says. And hi, Drew. I live down the street on Ramsey Road, but we've never met. Unfortunately,
you can do it now. So.
No, you probably don't know that as a professor of urban planning, I'm probably more geeking out about new urbanism than I should. And obviously, I've read the regulating plan and the GIP a number of times. So my comment, and again for our neighbors' benefit, is that courtyard apartments up to 3 stories are a permitted use in the neighborhood, and but only on those parcels where they're specifically shown on the GIP. And so because you can't change the regulating plan without the 75% vote, you'd be forced to conform to the standards, as I understand it, of the courtyard apartment structure. So if you look at the regulating plan, I can show you the exact section. Right, the essence of a courtyard is that there's almost like a U-shaped where you have a courtyard, hence the name, and that adjoins the street frontage. And our regulating plan requires that the street frontage must occupy at least 50% of the lot frontage. And so, again, you have no frontage on a road. So if you look at the design criteria, the courtyard apartment and those that are around it, the live work units, is designed to have that walkable village feel. Really designed that the long building would front a street. So I'll be glad to talk to you guys and show you some design concepts I can think of, but as a concept, I hate to say it because I'm all for density and infill. I don't think there's any way you can make a courtyard apartment work with no frontage, and certainly the U-shaped cutout would cut into your units. And if you look at the very specific parking design, how it's designed, there's no way you could do a parking on that first floor. You could put parking underneath, but then you're talking a lot of expense. I think there are areas in Middleton Hills that might be viable for multifamily development. And, you know, as I mentioned to Anders Dwayne himself once, that was one of the big mistakes in a lot of new urbanist developments, is not integrating a lot of kind of rental. We do have multifamily with the condos, with the senior facility, but we could use some rental kind of in that vacant parking lot near Cops that's right on the major street and on a bus line. So the other design principle in new urbanism, and Randy knows this better than I do, is right, the idea that the height of the building is somewhat proportional to the width of the street. So again, you don't front on the street, and the street you do front on, Glacier Ridge, is really at most 2 stories with a step back to a 3rd story, not a kind of blockish full 3rd story, if you look at some of the townhouse condos right on that corner. So I guess my concept review to you is that it's not going to work in that place, in that structure.
Got it.
Okay, well, Ross and Drew, you got another contact. Go and talk to Kurt. So,
Yeah.
Randy, you want to say something?
Yeah, just briefly, I was glad to see somebody trying to be creative with a parking lot. I mean, I do want to, as a city, I think we need to look at surface parking areas and try to make better use of them. If there's a way to get that done and still meet the regulating plan, and the other requirements, architectural requirements in Middleton Hills, I would be supportive.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah, Kurt,
Jennifer? Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
Randy, you are still speaking, right? You're done?
I'm done.
Okay. Dan, you wanted to speak?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Jennifer?
I have nothing to add, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, John? John, you are muted.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I was eating. We talked a lot tonight about ideas of transition, and it strikes me that this is next to a big, large shopping center, and it's right next to homes. And so whatever you do, I would be very much in favor of you looking at how to make it a transitional thing as opposed to a monolithic wall between the neighborhoods. That's all.
Sure.
Excellent. Anybody else who wants to speak? Abby, do you still want to send it to CLC, or do you think that you want to wait for that one yet?
It might be premature to send.
Okay, all right. All right, so you guys, Drew and Ross, you got plenty of input now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the input. Again,
Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
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 Okay, we are adjourned, and thank you, everyone. I know it was a long meeting, and Drew and Ross, you got the contacts, and move forward and see and come up with something which we can work on. And Kotikar, that's the same thing for you too, and work with the staff and see what you can come up with. Thank you, and good night. And
Thank you so
see you
much.
soon.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Bye.